So you guys just kind of going over the introduction to different careers, get you some ideas. We're really here to train technicians, but maybe after this boot camp class of 5 weeks, you might say, you know what, I don't really want to do this. Or like Corona, they might be like, I don't work in the sun. I'm not made for that. You might want to be a service advisor or something. So this will give you an overview of different stuff you can do. Because remember, we're kind of testing you out to see if we think you have what it takes, but also you should be kind of testing yourself and seeing what it is that you think you really want to do, okay? So we'll get into how cars used to be, because I think that'll give you some good perspective as to like what the technician job entails. So all right, so let's go way back in the day. This one's usually fun for me. You know, original vehicles, they were so basic. Do you know how you used to start them? You actually know? The crank, yeah. Is that funny or what? You'd say like, oh, let's go get the car ready. Okay, no problem. Turn the key on, and then you'd go out there and you'd, and actually there's quite a few people who got injured. I think there even might have been some who were killed. Okay, so cars way back in the day were super basic. And, you know, to be honest, if you had enough money to have one of the earlier cars, you probably had someone who would drive the car for you, and they would also be the one to start the car for you. And have you ever thought about where that mentality came from? I could tell you, because I know a little bit of the history. All right, so let's go way back in the day, 200 years ago. There were no cars, you know that, right? So if you had to go down to the drugstore, how would you get there? You could ride your horse, or if you were a little more well-to-do, you'd probably ride in the carriage, right? And you'd be in the carriage, and the horse would be, it was a horse-drawn carriage, so the horse would draw the carriage. Now, horse ownership can be a little bit different nowadays. Now people who want to have horses, they're in love with horses, and they'll go, you know, shovel all the horse business themselves typically because they're very equestrian. But back in the day, if you had the money, you'd be like, no, I have the carriage, and if I want to go into town, somebody else is going to get the horse ready, get the horse yoked up to the carriage. I'm going to step into my carriage. I'm going to sit in my carriage, and someone else, wouldn't you say there's going to be someone else who's going to do the horse stuff and the carriage stuff? You know, that was called a chauffeur. All right, so back in the day, there was a chauffeur, and the chauffeur would actually live, let's say this was an estate. Let's say you were the estate owners. Do you want to be the chauffeurs or the estate owners? Okay, well, somebody's going to be the estate owner. You'd be the owner of the estate, and you'd say, okay, I'm ready to go down to the drugstore when, you know, if you were going to get Coca-Cola, you know, that was special back then, right? It was Coca-Cola. So you'd say like to the chauffeur, you know, get the stuff ready. The chauffeur didn't probably live in the house, but the chauffeur may live on the estate. The chauffeur probably lived in the barn, and the chauffeur would wear like a specific type of clothes. I think it was gray. So they would wear gray clothing and take care of the horses, feed the horses, clean up after the horses, keep the carriage in kind of decent condition, and then you'd say like, you know, take me down there, right? Take me to the drugstore so I can get my Coca-Cola. For some reason, I need my Coca-Cola like every day or something. I don't know why. So that's how the horse and carriage stuff went. And then when they started to come up with the early vehicles, you know, they started to call them like the horseless carriage, right? Look at that. That's a car. Does that look like a car? I don't think so. That looks like the carriage right there. That looked like the carriage. Actually, some of the early vehicle body manufacturers, they were carriage manufacturers. And then they started making the body of the car. So if you picture the old car, you could see this is pretty basic. You know, wood wheels. They weren't even pneumatic tires. The wheels were kind of big because they could get stuck on the rutted dirt roads, because those dirt roads were made for horses and carriage. That's just the way it was. And so let's just say you were the estate owner. You want to be the estate owner?
No, how the estate you had to use this?
They had the little stick, and they had some different stuff. That was fun. But let's say this is your carriage right here. All right, Shastov, this is your carriage. But you're the first one who's ever bought one of these. So you had the carriage and the horse, but now you bring this horseless carriage. Who do you think is going to naturally like take care of this carriage now?
The chauffeur.
The chauffeur was going to do it. Yeah, the chauffeur. So you're like, hey, chauffeur, don't worry about that carriage anymore. we're going to this carriage. This carriage can go faster. You put a little bit of, well, they had different fuels in the beginning, okay, but we'll just make it simple. Put some gas in there. So the chauffeur would take care of the carriage. The chauffeur at that point sort of shifted to the chauffeur mechanic. Did you ever hear that term? The chauffeur mechanic was the like original mechanic. They weren't necessarily highly trained. They were more like they shoveled stuff. They shoveled things, material stuff. Okay, and they slept in the barn, and they wore gray, like kind of like servant type of clothes. Okay, but now they're the chauffeur mechanic. Now you guys understand where we come from, right? A little bit. So when they had the chauffeur set up, and they would take care of the carriage a little bit or whatever, but if this had an engine in it, and all of a sudden the engine was worn out, and it had low compression, it needed to be rebuilt. Do you think the chauffeur had the skills to rebuild an engine? No, they didn't. So the chauffeur was like your basic mechanic who'd take care of the car in the way that they would take care of a carriage. If the car needed something like a major overhaul, all of a sudden these mechanic shops started popping up. So if we were to go down to town to get the Coca-Cola, there was also all of a sudden next to the drugstore like a mechanic, and that mechanic would do the more major work on all the horseless carriages. So at first there wasn't enough business for them, right? But then once there was, let's say, 30 horseless carriages in the little town, they could stay busy. Chauffeur mechanic does the basic thing. If it needs the more major work, bring it down to the mechanic shop, and the mechanic would do the more major work. All right, so let's just say you're the only mechanic in town. That's kind of a good business, right? You're the only option. That would be kind of like a monopoly, right? You could charge whatever you want. And if somebody doesn't want to pay your price, there is no other option. Am I right? It's kind of like electricity and these types of things. What are you going to do? Turn the power off. Make your own. I don't know. Right, so back in the day, the mechanics would charge what they want. Now, if you're the chauffeur mechanic, you're living in the barn. You still probably have to shovel some things and stuff. Would you rather be the mechanic who's in town with the mechanic shop, who's charging people whatever they want, maybe getting your own estate? Mm-hmm. Who wants to do that job? All right, good. That's good. So this is the thing. If I was the mechanic, now I'm not saying that I am, but let's say it was my shop and you were the chauffeur, and all of a sudden another mechanic shop popped up. I want all the business. I don't want you going over there. So I'd make a deal with you. I'd say like, hey, when that horseless carriage breaks down, when the original car breaks down, make sure your owner brings it to me. Make sure they bring it to me, and I'll give you a little something, okay? Just if I charge them 100, I'll give you a kickback of 10. 5, actually, 5. How about 5? I'll give you 5, okay? So you see how it started to get shady already? Don't you see how we started kind of like dirty, living in the barn, and then we were making shady deals? Okay, we're not off to a very good start. I'm just letting you know. And then all of a sudden, you're trying to come up and you want to be the competing mechanic, and probably the second mechanic in town was a chauffeur who tried to come up, right? So we're trying to kind of keep our own people down because we don't really want the competition. You see, it's really not a good start, all right? Coming from that to the modern vehicle, the job's totally different, but actually if you think about it, some of the social things that we have built in have remained. Do you think you're going to be really well respected by your families for being a mechanic? Some of you maybe yes, but mostly no. So when I told my mom, I'm gonna go to school to work on cars like Dad, she was like, "What? I thought you were going to be a marine biologist." Do you know why I wanted to be a marine biologist? One reason. I like turtles. That's it. Like, I was going to make a whole career choice because I like turtles, and that was it. And it was mostly Ninja Turtles, actually. So it wasn't even really relevant, right? But my mom thought, there's no way you should go to school to work on cars. Working on cars is like, that's for those people, okay? You know what I'm saying? That's not for you. You're better than that. You're special. Oh, I'm special. I'm going to tell you right now. But actually, I thought it was what I wanted to do. The turtle thing was cool. Working on cars more interested me. And I have to tell you, I'm so glad I didn't become a marine biologist. I mean, like, I would just maybe have work, maybe not have work, maybe have to travel, maybe, I don't know. That's a very uncertain career to me. Automotive can be really good, but we'll get you a little bit more of the backstory, why you should do it, okay? So I've far surpassed even remotely how much money my mom made or her level of success in automotive. So I kind of broke her heart, but slowly over 20 years kind of put it back together a little bit. So she was wrong, but at the time she didn't think so. Okay, go ahead.
Did you ever end up purchasing
A car?
a turtle?
Oh, I have a pond that's about 75 feet by 100 feet, and there's like 20 of them in there. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of turtles in there.
We do have a pond. That's why I was asking.
I didn't buy those turtles though. People are like, hey, my turtle outgrew its tank. And I'm like, I have a huge pond that's 12 feet deep. You want to drop it off? You can. And they come drop the turtles off now. So I got the turtles, but I didn't do the career with the turtles. Okay, go ahead. No, because I felt disrespectful of like some people were dropping these turtles off like with their families and their kids. I'm not going to rename that. Like that's whatever the name they gave it, but now it's a wild turtle. And they adapt too, I'm going to tell you. They're not really domesticated anymore. All right, then don't get me off track. All right, so back in like 1885, this was generally, there's some arguments here, like a lot of things. Generally, the first automobile, 1885. Who invented it? Benz. Does Benz ring a bell? Oh, okay. So there's some lineage there. Okay, just saying. So as we get a little bit further in, earlier versions were more like the horseless carriage, and then like Mr. Clyde was mentioning, Henry Ford. Henry Ford did invent the car. Henry Ford really, in my opinion, perfected the assembly of the vehicle. So back here, if we look at this one was custom made by, some number of individuals, and they would, work on a part and then go get material and then work on something. And then, oh, we're done with the wheel. Now we're going to work on this. And I got to go over here. And there's a lot of steps right there. What Henry Ford was getting really good at, as we get a little bit more into it, was making it affordable. So back in the day, the estate owners had the cars, and the chauffeurs lived in the barn, and the chauffeur got to basically drive the car. And we still have that. Sometimes they'll call them chauffeurs, right? You hear that term? That's where it came from. So not a taxi driver, but like a chauffeur of a limousine. Makes sense? So back in the day, literally horseless carriage, kind of unreliable and expensive. Expensive relatively. You know what that means? So expensive now? No. You could buy it for $300. But for back in the day, $300 was like totally unaffordable for the normal person. Makes sense? So Henry Ford, as you'll see, really started to ramp this up to make it more affordable for everybody. So before this, it was considered a novelty, which was like something you'd show off. It's actually kind of like a carriage now. Does anybody have a horse and carriage? You do.
Well, my dad built one for shop class in high school, and he just still has it.
It's a novelty. And there was one person, so actually that's pretty good. But it was opposite before. Before, like more people had those, and it'd be very like unique and cool to show off that, wow, I've got a horseless carriage. Like look at it. Kind of makes sense. Almost like how the first Teslas were. Back in 2013, there were very few Teslas, and be like, I have a Tesla. You want to see it? You want to check it out? Like now they're all over the road. It's just changed. Partially it was affordability. The original Tesla Model S's were like way over 100,000. Now you could buy a 3 for like 30-something thousand, new, used, way cheaper. Like we've got them much more affordable, right? What made it affordable? Mass production. So let's look at the 1900s. So there's Henry Ford doing the assembly line. Have you guys really ever considered what the assembly line did? Like, if you can get this type of thinking in your brain, efficiency, productivity, you could do really well. That's the positive and the negative of that capitalist society, okay? If you can make it highly productive and efficient, and that means profitable, you can keep the rewards of that. So Henry Ford figured out this assembly line. So rather than, remember how the people were walking all over here and they had to go over here, that's all downtime, right? If you can have somebody at a station with their material, roll the car, do the job, move the assembly line. Next car comes up, material, do the job, right? Faster, faster, faster. Was it as fun? Probably not. I'm not really advocating for the factory labor design as like an amazing career choice, although actually that is one that's related to automotive. But this really made it much more affordable. They could pump them out a lot faster. You were using a lot more labor hours to produce it. There was also more consistency. Like you can get really good if you do the same thing over and over, right? So if you do the same thing over and over, lube techs, you're here, right? You remember your very first day as a lube tech, like the oil change was kind of slow, huh? Took you a little while. But by the time you do it over and over and over in your same stall with your tools already there, it'd be kind of cool if somebody pulled the car in for you. Jiffy Lube stuff, that's how they do that. In the dealer, we're going to go get the car and we're going to pull it in. But repetition will make you fast. The more cars you do, the more profitable that would be, right? So we lowered the cost of the car. Interchangeable parts. Every car wasn't kind of custom. Like we were punching out the Model A, Model A, Model A, Model A, Model A. Make sense? And then, of course, we redesigned some things. More powerful, more reliable. Would you guys say that the cars are more and more powerful and reliable? Like, what's your favorite car? Pick something.
LFA.
Oh, you got to go for the LFA. Okay. We go for the LFA. LFA, what, 2012 roughly is when they made those. V10, you know what the horsepower is? I think it was about 500. 500 was amazing, 2012. 500 horsepower. They do sound good. I mean, that's a timeless, that's a cool car right there. But 500 horsepower is actually not that much in 2025. It's just really not. So if you think even further back, you know, you're going to probably realize like a lot of the specs of the cars weren't really that impressive. Nobody for like the 2000 Honda Civic? Nobody?
97.
Yeah. A 97 Miata, even better. And you drive that?
I used to.
When you see over the windshield?
I had a Honda seat, so I sat.
Oh, so you could make it look normal. I see. Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. What's the movie with the giraffe, Melman?
I don't know this one.
I'm gonna think about it later, but it would remind me of that. Sticking way up
Oh, you're
above
talking
them.
about Madagascar?
There you go. Got him. Okay, looking like that. All right, cool car. Not a whole lot of power, right? The horsepower has increased and increased and increased and increased. It just has, you know. And then you think about reliability. Now, this one we can get into a whole big debate, but I'll summarize it pretty simply. That old horseless carriage, that would need that engine rebuilt like after a fairly low number of miles. And they were actually like, from what I heard, Mr. Clyde knows more of the history, but I think some of those original Model A's came with like a little block of Babbitt so you could carve out a new bearing. From what I understand, they would kind of like whittle it. Like they would send it with Babbitt so you could whittle your own bearings because they knew that engine wasn't going to last that long. Older cars, they were amazing, but compared to a newer car, you guys aren't even worried about that engine wearing out till the mileage is way over 200,000. You know that, right? 200K miles is totally normal. Anybody got higher than that on their cars right now? Higher than 300? All right, so you're right in there, 2 to 3, over 3? How much?
$500,000.
500K. Okay, all right. Yeah. So that's the thing, like that was totally unheard of back in the day. Cars couldn't last that long. They've been refined and engineered. They are more reliable. Now this is, the negative is, yes, there's a lot more electronics and they're a lot more expensive. But as far as you jumping in and driving, you used to not be able to drive 10,000 miles and then do an oil change and then drive another 10 and do an oil change and drive another 10 and still go 200, 300, maybe more, 1,000 miles. Makes sense? Unquestionably, they're more reliable. So if we were to go back in time, the cars were less reliable, which means what did they need more often? Yeah, like maintenance and repair, but a lot of it was maintenance. So back in the day, there was a lot more jobs for maintenance. Now that the cars are more and more reliable, we're still doing some maintenance, but the maintenance is less. And now when the repairs are happening, they're more technical. Okay, so you're going to see there's a trend, and the trend has shown no signs of slowing down. Right, so again, we got into manufacturing, late 1800s. We started to do globalization. You guys know what that means? Let's say it's a domestic vehicle. That means it's primarily an American-based, like let's say, we'll use Ford. Ford makes sense. We're talking about Henry Ford. Yeah, it may be a Ford, but it's got a whole bunch of parts on it that were not made here. You guys should know that now, right? And that's part of the way they save money. It's got the Ford logo. You know, if you're really super patriotic, first off, Ford's not my team. You know what I'm saying? Like Ford is not, that's not it. But if you were like Ford, like, yeah, I've got an American car, you could actually look at the sticker and be like, what percentage of the parts were made in the US? And there's probably not that many, actually. So globalization lowers the cost because now we got the sway bar links are made over there. The engine may be made in or around Detroit. The body overall may be made in or around Detroit. The wheels are made over here. A bunch of stuff is hecha in China. You know that, okay? It just is what it is. So globalization, lowering the cost. A little bit of a plug for Toyota. Even the American-made car manufacturers aren't made all in the U.S. So if a Toyota is made in Kentucky, it's probably just as American, you could say, as the domestics. Makes sense? So consider that, but the main reason we do that is so we can manufacture the parts cheaper, because in other countries we can have cheaper labor. Cheaper labor, less strict regulations on how they run the factory, and you know, that type of stuff. Make it cheaper. Here's what it would look like now. Remember the assembly line? That would be a modern assembly line. For the record, any of you, if you really want, you could work in the assembly line. Who's psyched up? Like, assembly line. They can make decent money. They could be like $40 an hour. And that's pretty good money. You're interested, aren't you?
No, like, you control the robots or?
Some of it, yes and no. So I'll give you a Toyota term right here. It's robotics with a human touch. So it's like, what the heck does that mean? They have a lot of robots. The more that they can make automated, they will. The repetitive tasks, the heavy lifting, a lot of that's automated. But we still need people to go around and do various things. The people directly are not controlling these. These are like programmed to do repetitive motion, repetitive. But, you know, people may reload things and do some certain aspects, you know, but more and more of this and less the actual human labor on the assembly line. That's the trend, okay? So the reason, I got two reasons I wouldn't recommend this personally. However, if you live in Kentucky and the factory's in Kentucky, and you're like, I came from a small town, not in Kentucky though, from New York, there really wasn't that many jobs in town. So like if that's where you're at, this would be a great job. I mean, you probably have your family and their parents have probably worked there. You could have multi-generations work in the factory. It's not bad. But for you all sitting right here, there's no factory close by. So unless you're willing to relocate where a factory is, you're kind of tied down to where the factory is. Do you know where the dealers and the shops are? Everywhere. And I like that. For myself, I want to be able to go where I want to be able to go. I don't want to have to choose between one of the major manufacturing areas. But this wouldn't be a bad job. However, the second reason I wouldn't totally recommend it, first mainly being you're tied down to where the factory's at. I don't like being told what to do. I also don't really like not being able to do what I want to do. So the factory doesn't work real well for me. The other thing is, this has gone more and more electronic, more and more robotic, less and less human. Make sense? Don't lie to me. Who's working fast food? Who worked fast food at some point? Even me too. Me too. My first real official job was a place called Roy Rogers. It was kind of like I don't know. It's like a rest stop type of fake Carl's Jr. almost, like a wannabe Carl's Jr. but like more trashy, basically. Okay, so I worked that job because that was the job. You know what I'm saying? All those fast food jobs, have you guys noticed what's happened? Yes, they're getting more money per hour. And if that's you and you're benefiting, great. But what have they also done, like when you want to go in and place your order at McDonald's? Who you talk to? The kiosk. Okay, so I would say similar with this. I see less and less job security in something like this. I wouldn't probably push you in this direction if you asked for my advice. I'd say no. I wouldn't do it. Cool, but that's one option. There is some interesting things you might consider. Sometimes, if you look at, they're assembled by these high productions. The robots do a lot of the work. Some of the assemblers continue to work on some of the tasks, and a lot of various parts of the vehicle may be made in separate plants, right? So you may have the plant where they do the final assembly, but you probably have a different plant where they do the engine assembly, probably a different plant where they do the transmission, probably a different plant where they do some of these other manufacture sway bars all day, sway bar links, right? Those are all manufacturing jobs. They're probably not going to be super high pay, but there's one thing I'll admit. There's someone who has to figure out those processes, but that's going to be an engineer. So if that's what you want to do, cool, no problem. But this isn't the program. Makes sense? It's automotive, yes, but we're not teaching you how to design the parts, how to really do the manufacturing, or how to necessarily like do the process. But I want you to remember this a little bit, because remember how Henry Ford made it a lot more efficient? He did a really good job at making it more efficient, which made it more affordable. Toyota's also really good at that. So when we get into TXM, Toyota Express Maintenance, that's how Toyota suggests they do the oil change. The engineers who look at these assembly lines and figure out the most efficient way to pump out massive quantities of vehicles or widgets, the ones who make them pump out, they went from 100,000 widgets to 200,000 widgets with this remodeled procedure. Makes sense? That's what they do, and they're good at it. Those are the people who are contributing to this TXM process we'll bring up. TXM is what the engineers have designed as the quickest way, the most efficient way, the least number of steps, the least wasted steps to do like a multi-point inspection, tire rotation, oil change. Right, so just consider that Toyota's got a lot of people. That's what they do to make their factories more and more highly productive. Cool. So again, it's high volume. A lot of it's got to do with timing. There's cool stuff with manufacturing. But remember, modern vehicles use sophisticated technology to mass produce and look at a high quality and affordable. Wait, is there such a thing? But think about it. There's human error, right? All right, who's ever stripped a bolt? Yeah, we do that. That's what we do. Sometimes we mess up. But see, if it's robotic, it can do the same thing every time, all day, every day, and never strip one bolt, right? So using the robotics, we can actually improve the quality. Makes sense? But it takes a lot of design to do that. So the robotics are improving the quality and making it more affordable, because the robots don't need health insurance. And actually, they don't even really need pay. They just need electricity. And that can be expensive depending on where you're at. Makes sense? So making it more affordable, I wouldn't go in there and try to compete against those robots. You're already beat. You already lost. They'll work cheaper. They'll work faster. They don't get tired. They don't complain. Sometimes they squeak a little bit. You just give them a little WD-40. They shut right up. You want pay and money and stuff. I wouldn't hire you. All right, so we get into technology though. Remember, old cars were basic. Old car, the chauffeur mechanic could take care of some little things, fix little basic things. The more technology packed, guess what? The more complicated your jobs are going to be. So love, hate. Who likes old cars? I kind of do too. But who could work on old cars versus who could work on a brand new car? Right? I mean, you could probably figure the old car out. Both is good. Both is good. But typically, there's more people who'd be able to jump right in and work on the older car, which means there's less people who could work on the newer car. You know supply and demand, right? So don't you want supply and demand to benefit you? You don't want 1 million people who can do your job. You want very few people who can do your job, and you want there to be a lot of demand to do your job, so that way you can leverage supply and demand. And, well, what do you think I'm going to tell you can do if you are in that situation? Make more money. Yeah, that's right. More money. More money, more problems. But more money. Kind of makes sense. So as we get more and more complex, just remember the demands on the technician increase and increase and increase and increase. Good and bad. It's a more stressful job probably, but it's a more financially rewarding job, I would say. Cool. Now, why do you think we're increasing technology so much? Who's calling for that?
Consumer.
Mostly the consumer, yeah. I'd say additionally, to an extent, government too. So, we have to meet our corporate average fuel economy numbers. We have to meet our emissions limits, right? So you got to get your emissions from here to here. How do we do that? Throw a bunch more technology on it. All sorts of ideas to get the emissions down. How do we get the car where it can basically drive itself? How do we get the car where you can press a button and tell it what you want it to do on the radio, right? Technology, we're just shoving it in there. So yes, the consumer wants it, and also the governments are, to an extent, legislating it. There's two things driving it. But it's pretty unlikely you're going to see a reversal where it's going to be like, oh, introducing the 2027 Honda Civic with no power steering, crank windows, no power locks, no keyless entry, and one speaker in the radio because it's mandated to have a door chime when you open your door. Not going to happen. Now, Chevy did it with the Z28, but they didn't really sell very many. Who did that?
Because they went from EV back to the...
Kind of, but when they go back to a gas Challenger, Charger, whatever, they're still going to be there's still a ton of tech packed into them. I would agree that the EV back to gas seems kind of backwards, but actually the gas engine, in my opinion, is more complicated than the EV, be honest with you. Kind of a different complicated, but there's a lot more parts and systems in there. First, let me get this guy.
It's also cheaper, right? I mean, because sometimes they put everything into a tablet instead of having to program and find out where all these buttons are supposed to go.
I don't know for sure the cost. I would say maybe more simple. I'm not totally sure about cheaper. I think it depends on the cost of the whole entire screen. But either way, the trend would be, back in the day, if you wanted to test that button, you could test the button. Now is like, how do you test the system? Like, it's going to instantly be computerized. If you want to know if that touchscreen works, there's probably a special function you can get into and test all the test points on there. It's just way more technical for the technician every time. And it would be kind of cool if they brought back cheaper cars. If the Civic came back for $8,000, brand new, with the crank windows, nobody'd buy it. Just letting you know. Otherwise, they would. But I'm not. Yeah, you probably would.
There is one company trying to...
I heard about one of them with the basic little truck.
Yeah.
I saw that.
You might let them do it again.
Yes. How about this? You hit pause for me. All right. So here we go. Kind of the summary being. Remember, the technology continues to increase and increase and increase. Technology mostly being electrical, electronic in nature, and some of the systems are mechanical. So let's say, for example, who knows about power steering? You have power steering fluid? New car have power steering fluid? Why not? Electric power steering. So back in the day, the work on a power steering system tended to more be power steering fluid leaks from the line or from the fitting or from the O-ring, right? So it was you're looking at it and you're saying, oh, that's a leak. How do we fix the leak? We replace the part that's leaking. We put the new part on. We put the fluid in. We bleed it. It's good, right? That was more mechanical in nature. Would you agree? Electronic power steering. You get an EPS light. You get a electronic power steering system failure light on. What do?
Bring it in the shop.
Yeah, have it call somebody who does know. Who are you going to call? Am I right? So again, it's not real intuitive for the DIY person. They're going to say, oh, I got this warning light on. They're going to go on the internet. They're going to start typing things. They're going to say, check your battery, disconnect your battery, reconnect your battery, clean your battery terminals. Really, the people saying all that stuff have no idea. You're just wasting your time. What you'd really need to do is most likely scan tool, check for DTCs, right? Now you may do it overall, like if your battery is no good, you could have problems with your electronic power steering. But the DIY person they run out of talent at the battery, and they just keep saying like, well, check the battery, check the battery, check the battery. So like, the battery's fine. Now what? Scan tool, check DTCs. You just got the login for TIS, that's the Toyota Information System. You put that in and you can actually enter the DTC, read about the system, understand the system. You get some tests to perform. You perform the tests. That's how you do the diagnosis, right? It's just different. It's different, it's more technical, it's worth more money, what I'm saying. Cool, and then yeah, we still do have some mechanical systems. A lot of times the electrical and the mechanical work together. So that's not to say with your new electronic power steering system, you don't get loose tie rod ends. So there's still work that mirrors the work of the old days where it's like, hey, my wheel's loose. Oh, it's a loose tie rod end. That's still there, but we've added a whole lot of more complex electrical electronic systems. Right, and it's just going to continue to increase and increase and increase. And then again, part of this is being driven by climate change. So you got government initiatives and standards being set and trying to do more and more efficiency, lower and lower emissions. For example, we'll go right back to that electronic power steering. If you have a car that's a power steering pump, do you know what turns the pump? The belt. And what turns the belt? The crankshaft. And then, so the crankshaft is basically powering the belt, which is powering the pump, which means it's adding load to your engine. Would you agree? Your engine has to work a little harder to turn the pump in addition to turn the wheels, we'll just say, vaguely. Cool. That's good at the parking lot speed because we need a lot of help. But what about when you're cruising down the freeway? Like, you don't really need any power steering. Well, on the hydraulic power steering car, we're still running the power steering pump, right? There's some waste right there. So instead, they go to electronic, and electronic means it's, and parking lot maneuvers, it's still going to put a demand on it because the alternator is going to have more of a magnetic field. So it's going to kind of consume more energy, more gas, higher emissions. But then when you're on the freeway, it's like, psh, that power steering pump, that electric power steering motor does nothing. It can kind of relax the alternator a bit, right? And it can just cruise. It's more efficient. So you're going to notice a lot of the things on the car that are going this direction, it's a lot of times to improve the fuel economy and to reduce the emissions, okay? Just so you know. You're going to see that trend over and over and over. Cool? Same with hybrid. Hybrid, that's the hybrid main goal. Better fuel economy, lower emissions. Make sense? And then, again, we're decreasing the availability and increasing the cost of oil-based products. It's just kind of the trend. Okay, more and more electronics. Now, let's explain why that matters to you. If you were to look at automotive as a career, okay, not marine biologist, not a good idea, I'm just letting you know. Okay, automotive, you know why? Who needs a car to get to work? Most people. People who are getting to work via car is the vast majority. Some people maybe taking the bus. Somebody needs to fix that bus. Some people take the train, the subway, the whatever. Someone needs to fix that. Trash as well. I did that job for a while too, train specifically. So those need work regularly. Now some people ride bicycles to work. That's amazing. Those need to be worked on too, and that's not probably a career I'd really push you toward, but the bulk of people need the transportation just to get to work. So when times get tough, they can't be like, you know what, I'm just gonna cut my car out. I don't really need it anyway. Like, that's probably one of the means of their income. So it's fairly recession resistant. I couldn't say totally recession proof, but within automotive, there are three major sectors. So service, retail, manufacturing, and you could even maybe say like sales, but if you want to sell cars, like you don't need to take this class. Honestly, I don't exactly know what skills you need to sell cars. It's mostly just people skills, get them to believe that they need it, you know. You guys know, like, I believe it might have been Sears actually. Sears started using, I think, some sort of South American labor to produce their stuff in their factory. And they were using, I don't think it was Mexico though, somewhere in South America, it was further south, and they were using, let's say, one of these countries to to build their materials in their factory, build their stuff. And this is a true story. People would come in the factory and they'd work and they'd pay them pretty low, but they'd work for like a year and then they'd be like, I have all this money, I'm good. And then they just stopped working because they didn't need the money anymore. And so and they kept going through this. They kept losing people and losing people. Do you know how they actually got people to stay? They started giving them a catalog to the products. right? And so then they start looking at the products and saying like, oh, I need that. See, before they had too much money and they just would quit working, and now they're like, oh, look at this, I want that. Okay, so sales is a whole different thing. Convincing someone that they need something or to buy something, like, it's not really that technical in nature. Okay, so we've omitted sales. I can't really teach you about that. However, service, well, I guess retail would be it. Retail would be sales. And then manufacturing. So manufacturing would be, like we were talking about, working the assembly line, doing those repeat tasks. And then retail, my bad, being sales. These right here, not really my specialty. This one is where we're going to spend our time. All right, so if we're looking at service, what do you think that means? Like service in general is much larger than just oil changes. Oil change would be a type of service. What do you think?
Tire rotations.
2, oil change, tire rotation, repair, brakes, spark plugs. So basically like any kind of work that we do on the car. If it was manufacturing, you know what that means? Building the car, assembling the car. If it was retail, what do you think that more means? Selling the car. So if you are building the car, manufacturing, if you're selling the car, retail / sales. If you're servicing the car, it's probably pretty much everything else. Tires. What about if you don't do the work, but you, for example, deliver parts to have the work done? Which one of those you think would fall under? It's still mainly really service. So retail, you could say like you're a parts retailer, but really the parts are being sold to service. So it's probably really still under service. Service is where we're going to spend most of our discussion right here. And again, you could get into a couple of these. I just don't. That's not really I don't know. And I've also talked to some salesmen. When I started working in the dealership, salesmen were kind of different. Like I'm telling you, there's a saying, they could sell like ice to an Eskimo. You think the Eskimo needs the ice? But they'll sell it to him. Somehow the Eskimo realizes they need the ice and they'll pay for the ice. Makes sense. They got plenty of ice, but they need it. Now I go to the dealer and I really see like a lot of the salespeople aren't really salespeople. They're more like they do some paperwork and they get the car you want. But now, when people go to the dealership, a lot of times they've already made up their mind on what they want. There's reviews, there's videos, you can do tours, you can go online and build it and spin it around and spin it around and spin it around. It's just kind of different, right? So we're going to really focus on service. And so that's going to be within, let's say it's a dealership, that's like the whole backside of the dealership, servicing the vehicle. That's where we're going to focus, okay? All right, so let's say we're in service now. Who wants to be a technician versus a mechanic? Who wants to be which one? Are they the same?
Technician.
They're different? What's the difference? Because, sometimes if you are filling out an application, it asks your occupation. It might not have technician. It may only have mechanic. I'm going to click mechanic, but there's a little bit of nuanced differences. What do you think? You could say like that. The technician is more technical in nature. I'd say that'd be the short answer. How about you?
I would say the technician can diagnose the car and the mechanic just like replaces parts.
In a way, that's one of the ways at least to look at it. So from the purist standpoint, remember how we were talking about how the car came from more of like the carriage? The car came from being a carriage, you could tell what was broken. It was very mechanical. You could look at it and be like, oh, this is loose, and pull and push and just observe, right? It was all very mechanical. Remember we were just talking about the big touch screen, how you can control stuff? What's the mechanic going to do with that, right? There's nothing to see. There's nothing to pull. There's nothing to mechanically really to test. So it's become a lot more technical. And I think to try to get the common person to understand that, we sort of needed a title change. But beyond that, to be honest, I don't find it demeaning in any way to be called like, hey, you're a mechanic, and say like, yeah, whatever. I don't really care about the title, but the job has changed. So therefore, when the job changes a lot, probably the title of the job should change to signify a little bit of a difference, right? So here's kind of the difference. Mechanic performed all aspects of a mechanical repair. Cool. Makes sense? The wiring harness was small, more simple, did not have a lot of computers, did not have any computers back in the day. So the electrical aspect of the car was, well, at first there was none. There was nothing. It was the horseless carriage. Then they got some lights and they got, some instrumentation and they got some little electrical features, but it was pretty minimal, right? So 90% of the car was still very mechanical. That'd still really be a mechanic. There's even places now, if you take your car there and you got an electrical problem, they'll just say, oh yeah, we don't do that part of it. You need more like an electrical specialist. That still exists out there where they're kind of separate. Okay, so if you want to be a mechanic, it was skilled labor, okay, it was skilled trade. Not saying that the mechanics were any less skilled, but where do you think they learned most of it?
On the job.
Yeah, so like if you want to be a mechanic, this is kind of how it used to work when I came up was, there's a mechanic and the mechanic does the work. And if you wanted to be a mechanic, you'd get hired and you'd start by sweeping the floors. You'd sweep the floors for a while and then be like, hey, why don't you start cleaning the parts, right? And then they'd take the parts off and give you the parts and you clean the parts. And then the whole time you're kind of watching, seeing what they do. Then maybe the next time you're handing them the tools. And then you're sort of like, hey, I know what tools you need. And when you start to outgrow the position, the mechanic's about to turn around and say, hey, give me the 9/16 wrench, and you already got it. And you're like, this is what you need. Okay, it's time for you to start doing it. Get you right in there. You turn the wrench, right? So you'd really learn on the job. And it would take a while. Does that sound kind of slow? I just want to let you all know, because I'm judging your age right now. The people that you're going to work under came up more in this type of system. This is pretty common. It may take 5 to 10 years to get moved up from your sweeping the floor to actually doing work on the cars, okay? Who's ready to wait 5 to 10 years to do that? So at least own it. You don't want to wait that long. I also didn't want to wait that long. And luckily I didn't have to wait that long. But you just got to understand, the more older, more experienced, more senior techs in the shop who've been around a while, they came up in a different way. They had to put their time in and slowly work their way up, okay? So when your expectation is to be a technician in 6 months, it ain't gonna happen. I'm just letting you know. No. If from today, right now, you can be doing work on the cars with no assistance and flagging your own hours in 3 years, that's a big success. 3 years would be good. You should be really doing some work on the cars, but probably not flagging your own hours in 2 years. You should be within the shop doing the oil changes and maybe starting to get some exposure within 1 year. If you thought it was gonna be less than that, I'm sorry. Like, the people who are at the dealerships, anybody get to flag their own hours and do their own line tech work? Sometimes there's one, most of the time there's none. So it's just demonstrating to you, you're gonna come in, you're gonna have to work your way up, but luckily for you, it's not gonna take 5 to 10 years. It's probably gonna take more like a 1 to 3. 1 to 3 is probably about the best you can expect, okay? That's amazing compared to how this was. Way different. All right, and so it was technical, but less technical. Make sense? You were doing repairs, you were doing torque specs, you were doing diagnosis, but it didn't involve the laptop. It didn't involve the scan tool, at least until later. It didn't involve the meter every day, your multimeter. A technician, that's going to be, remember how we were showing this trend of it's getting more and more technical, more and more complex, more and more electronics, more and more computerized. It's more technical. The people who work on that stuff, that would be the technician. So really, if you were to roll up to any shop and they're working on a vehicle that's 20 years old, that is probably going to be a technician. But like Mr. Clyde mentioned the other day, what if they just do alignments? They just do alignment after alignment after alignment. Is it a technician? I don't know. I mean, if they're not really using the scan tool, and maybe no. But a lot of times we just kind of lump these together. This is the intention of the technician title, okay? That's what it's supposed to be. So it used to be cables and levers and all that type of stuff. Now it's networks and communicating modules. Cool? So you press the power window down switch, you're in the driver's seat, you press it for the passenger rear, That's sending an electrical signal on the CAN network to the right rear door module, which is interpreting the signal and then sending voltage and ground to the motor. Makes sense? So if there's a problem with that, you got to get into the networks and the communications. So it's much more technical. Cool. So let's just say we roll up to a repair facility. So we talked about the three, remember? There was service, that's the big one, that's the one we're in. There was sales or retail, and then there was manufacturing. We're just now in service. In service, that's really how the dealership functions. Or let's say even CarMax. You know, would you consider CarMax a dealership? It's like a used car dealer, but it's not a new car dealer. You know the difference? New car dealers sell new cars and used cars probably, but they sell new cars, which means they're probably associated with a brand, right? So if it's a dealership, it's gonna be a little larger. Yes, we do have sales, so that would be kind of retail, but mostly we're looking at service and parts. Those would be the service side. So there's three different departments. You guys who are working, you familiar with these departments? How much time do you spend in the sales department?
Every car.
You're in the sales department?
Sorry, my bad. I was thinking parts.
In parts, yes.
Yeah.
In sales, it's just different. Like there's a sales manager, we don't report to them. There's a service manager, we do report to them. Makes sense? It's different. So when somebody works at the dealership, it's almost like there's two different employers at the same employer. Like sales is sales. Like we don't even really interact all that much, to be honest with you. And then there's parts and service, and parts and service, we work pretty close together. And sometimes they're kind of lumped into service as a whole. Sometimes they'll call it like the after sale experience or whatever. If you have a manager that's in charge of parts and service, a lot of times they call that not a service manager, but a parts and service director. Okay, so to give you the hierarchy right there. Sometimes they'll also call them a fixed operations manager. So if you think of titles, if you're already working, service manager is the service department. Service director is probably parts and service. And the fixed operations manager is probably parts and service. It's kind of another name for the director. So that's the hierarchy. And then let's say if it's like another type of repair facility, they may only perform service. So give me an example of a place that just does service. They don't do sales or parts.
I work at a Big O Tire.
Big O Tire. Do they sell tires?
Yeah.
So they kind of sell parts in a way, but they don't sell cars though. Yeah, so exactly. What about any place do only service? Where? Valvoline. Valvoline services only. That's it. They don't sell. You can't go to Valvoline and be like, hey, can I buy an oil filter? They'll be like, what? AutoZone's over there. You can go to O'Reilly's like that. You could buy it over there. But they don't sell stuff. So that would be a little bit different. But in a dealership, because that's mostly kind of what we're talking about, the dealership will have all three, even though we don't always interact with sales. Salespeople are funny. I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna find out. But typically, my experience with salespeople is they won't even really look at you. They'll wear their fancy clothes and their shiny shoes, and they'll look all good and stuff like that. And they won't give you the time of day until you know what happens. A car comes in on trade, and they need to take the license plate off, and they don't have a screwdriver. And they're like, "Hey, buddy, I need a screwdriver," and be like, "Okay." Like, can I borrow a screwdriver? Oh, you want my screwdriver? Yeah, this time. Okay, sure. Hand it. Salesman goes, does the license plate. Hey, yeah, this is the screwdriver here. Gives it to the wrong person. I never see the screwdriver again. We're done. We're done after that. Kind of makes sense? You'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how it was back in the day quite often. And so, kind of different. And then let's just say we'll cover each different type of facility, but we're mostly really going to focus in on service because that's why you guys are here. So let's say you went to this dealership type of facility. One of the entry-level jobs would be a porter or valet. You guys ever heard of this position? Anybody doing that right now? You want to keep doing that right now? You want to do it forever?
Not forever.
Not forever. But it's a good spot to start. I mean, you're at the dealership. You're there. You're getting to know people. You're parking a lot of cars. You get pretty good at parking cars. Sometimes you crash cars. Sometimes your friend crashes cars and gets fired. Sometimes you're driving the car and your friend jumps in the passenger seat and reclines and is chilling and puts the radio on and takes a piece of the gum from the customer, and it ends up on social media and everybody involved gets fired. No? Oh, okay. Well, guess it didn't sound like you guys saw that video. Okay, but that happens. It does happen. So let's just say the primary job, move vehicles for the shop. Now, sometimes there's sales porters or valets, and there's service porters or valets. So the salespeople may need cars moved from this part of the lot to over here, whatever. But generally for service, we're going to move cars. Like, let's say the car pulls up. Ready? Car pulls up. That car, to make it convenient for the customer, we may let them put it right in the service drive, and we're probably going to have you want to call them porters or valets? You pick. Porter was the overwhelming answer. So the porter, following their instructions, gets the car, moves the car to a spot, kind of staging it for the technician, puts the keys in a location, right? That's the most simple form of what the porter does. Now, when the car's done, what do you think the porter may do?
Bring it back to the service.
True, and sometimes it comes to the car wash, though. You ever seen the porters running the cars through the car washes? You guys who are working? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Okay, so it can vary, but basically very basic tasks, mostly moving the car. That's pretty much what they do. They also may put in like floor mats, seat covers, and then a lot of times they got the porters like cleaning up the service drive. You know, it's not a horrible job. I mean, you could tell everybody you work at Toyota. It's not honest. You work at Penske Toyota, or you work at Larry H. Miller Toyota, wherever you are. I just saw you, right? So technically, you work for the auto group or for the owner of the dealer. Makes sense? But you know, you're getting your foot in the door. That's okay. This is the thing, though. You tend to get stuck in this position. A lot of times, people take this position because they want to move up, and we're going to talk about how you move up, because probably that's why you're here. All right, cool. So it's a fun one. What do you need, though? Well, you're going to probably notice a trend here. You need a driver's license. And it has to be good enough to be insurable. Make sense? Do you know why? Because you got to move the customer's cars, which means you got to go on the dealership's insurance policy, which means if your driving record's really bad, the dealership can't get you an insurance policy, which means you can't drive the cars, which means you can't have the job. It's that simple. It's not because somebody's trying to be oppressive or they're trying to build into this system and they're trying to keep you down or whatever. Like, they got to insure you. It's just that simple. You can do the street racing thing. That's fine.
Like last night when you guys left.
Is that right? All right.
Like the Indianapolis 500 out there.
Well, if you lose your license, you can't even be a porter. You'd be below a porter. It'd be, I don't really know what's below the porter, but some other job.
You know, they ever go through certain parts of Long Beach, Santa Ana, you know, where it's, you know, you'll see these shops and there's like 14 cars parked out in front, none of them run.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right, because somebody else will pull them in for you. And you'll just be under there in the cave, dragging your knuckles. We're going to put you back in the porter gray garb. All right, that's where you're going. Where you came from, that's where you're going back to. So the porter job is not super demanding, but the license is pretty much it. And a lot of times when you get hired, yeah, you got to be able to pass a drug test. The drug test you might be able to study for it, though, so just study really hard. You'll be fine. Okay. You got to be able to drive the cars well, though. This part's true. You got to be able to drive the cars really well. So they're going to have you trying to move cars in tight spots, and there's a lot of activity and action and stuff. So like, if you were to go, let's say you were to roll up to the dealership right now and say, hey, looking for a job, you know, this is my background, I got an employable driving record. They'll be like, you want to work in the shop? And you'll say, yeah, I want to be a lube tech. What's your experience? If your answer is none, they're probably going to say, ta-da, you're a porter. Because at least as a porter, they're going to see, do you show up every day? If you make mistakes as a porter, it's not usually drain plugs and lug nuts, because that's kind of a safety thing. If you start banging cars up, they're not even going to let you move into the shop. It's never going to happen. Makes sense? So you got to be able to do this. On the positive side, because there still are some service managers and directors who want everybody to start as a porter, especially some of the Lexus dealers. That's just how they get down. They're just like, you're going to start as a porter, take it or leave it. There are a couple who still do that. Part of their justification is if you as a porter can learn how to maneuver the cars well, we know you're not going to be a technician who's going to start crashing cars. We've had quite a few people at some of your dealerships in the past as lube techs, T10 students, crash cars. They crash the car and they get terminated. It'd be, from a business standpoint, it'd be better to hire you in as a porter, not have you go through school, crash the car, and you're fired then before you invest all the time, okay? So this isn't what we recommend, but there's a lot of places who run their businesses this way, okay? Some of you, they'll want to start this way. It just is what it is, okay? What kind of technical skills do you need? Nothing. What kind of certifications do you need? Nothing. With that being said, it's part-time most of the time, sometimes full-time, but it can be part-time. It's flexible. It's what you might consider like a good college job while you're going to school, you need a little income, but you can't have a super demanding career while you're going to school, right? But it's most likely to be close to minimum wage. Now, why do you think that is? I'll give you a clue. It's right here. Sometimes a job doesn't pay based on how easy it is, though. A lot of times the job's going to pay based on the technical skills and the certification. So one thing I really want you to drive into your mind is, why does a job pay what it does? In the way that I grew up, I thought that the job paid what it did because it was a harder job. I did. It was like, well, they don't work that hard, so that pays less. They work really hard, so that pays more. But if you put that to the test, you'll find that's not the case. There's people who do some really hard jobs for really not a lot of money. Then there's people who are doing a job that's not that hard. At least it doesn't look that hard. And it's really comes down to more like this. So if you're highly skilled and highly certified, there's less people to compete with you. I'd more look at supply and demand. How many people could be a porter? Anybody with a clean driving record. So therefore, if they have more potential applicants, and they don't have to really train them, and they don't have to, consider the fact of what they needed to study in their school and their tuition costs and their tool bills. And, there's a lot of people to choose. They're going to pay pretty close to minimum wage. Just the way it is. Sorry to let you know. Okay, but the cool thing is, because it's typically flexible, that could allow someone to go to school for something where they're going to get their skills and their certification and be worth more money, right? So it's not a horrible job. It's not the one you want to end up in. Okay, if it is, cool, dude, you do it, but probably not. Okay, but here's the cool thing. It can lead to promotion and more desirable positions. That's a good thing, right? You got your foot in the door. They know you. If they like you and they get an opening in the shop, they want to move you into the shop because you've already demonstrated you show up to work. You're not carrying all this personal drama. You're not banging into cars. You're not calling in. You don't have Saturday morning sickness. Saturday morning sickness is contagious too, I'm going to tell you. Right? If you don't have that, maybe you get promoted into the shop. Cool? And then let's just say you do get moved up. Typically the next level will be the lube technician. Now the lube technicians, where are the lube technicians at? Is this your end goal? Is this what you want? No. But would you say it's better than porter? It is and it isn't. I mean, in a way you work harder, would you agree? Yeah. I mean, you got to actually go get the cars and move the cars like you did a porter, but then you also got to put it on the lift and loosen the drain plug and get the hot oil sometimes on you and around you. And then, it's a little harder. I think it's a little harder. Maybe not a ton harder, but it's a little bit harder. The reason that we generally consider it to be a promotion is because you're at least in the shop, so you're not outside, over here, over there, just kind of acting like a little gopher getting stuff. In that way, it's a little bit better. You're going to also perform manufacturer scheduled maintenance, so that would be oil changes. But what else? You guys tell me.
Spark plugs, air filter, cabin air filter.
Okay, hold up. Tire rotations, yes. Cabin air filters, probably. Air filters, yes. Any lube techs got to do spark plugs? Maybe one. Maybe. Depends on the place. So, Valvoline people, where are you at? Jiffy Lube, Valvoline, these type places? Spark plugs? No. I didn't think so. Air filters, oil filters, cabin air filters, wiper blades, light bulbs, batteries. All right. Tires. Tire replacement. Anybody? In the dealer, probably yes. In the Valvoline, probably no. Right. So this can vary a little bit, but
Disagree with the light bulbs.
yeah.
'Cause I can't go one day without seeing at least 3 vehicles in my short 7-mile commute.
With bulbs out.
And I know that car has been at a dealer within the last 3 months.
Yeah. So we could do a better job. We could do a better job on those multi-point inspections, but maybe the customer's doing their own maintenance and probably not. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna do some type of work like that. That's gonna be good. You also will do a lot of visual inspections. So now I'm gonna say, you think the lube tech job is easy? Kind of easy, but it's not as easy as the porter job. But to do a good job as a lube tech, kind of what Mr. Clyde's alluding to be a good lube tech, it's not just loosening the drain plug and tightening the drain plug and putting in the specified quantity of oil. It's really doing a really good visual inspection. So we're getting it in a lot into the MPI, the multi-point inspection of this class. If you're gonna actually do every aspect of the MPI, you actually gotta know quite a bit. You gotta know a little bit about a lot of things. You're gonna check for all sorts of fluid leaks, some potential electrical faults, such as the lights that are out that aren't being checked probably. I'm gonna do some things like battery tests, measure the coolant freeze protection, right? So there's actually, to do this well, a little more skill required. Also, you gotta be able to lift the vehicle, jack stands, etc. Keep time cards, be able to follow scheduled maintenance type paperwork. You guys ever seen the scheduled maintenance chart where it says what's due at what point, right? Like, you gotta know a little bit more stuff. You have to. But when it gets slow, you know what? You might be cleaning the shop. You might have to move some cars from time to time. Anybody end up getting pulled back into kind of like porter type of work? That happens sometimes. So sometimes you might end up just helping out. And then sometimes you might get to assist line technicians. Anyone ever get to do that? That's the goal right there. Just so you know, giving you a sneak preview. Your goal is to, remember how the old school way you move up to be a mechanic by handing the tools and stuff? Assisting the line technician is kind of like handing them the tools. They may give you a little job to do. They may tell you to clean the parts, right? That's kind of mirroring the old school, how it used to be. That's how you would become a mechanic. Now how you become a technician is kind of similar, but one of the things I want to make sure you know here is you as a lube tech might get to assist the line technician, but it's still really hard to become a line technician without actually getting the education, because you have to know how to do the more technical work. And typically the line tech isn't going to be like, hey, here's your lesson plan for the day. You're going to do A, B, C, and X, Y, and Z to learn. They're just going to be like, do this repetitive, easy task to help me out. Make sense? They used to work better when they was a lot more mechanical, but now with technical and troubleshooting, you're going to need some education, okay? You also might do some tires and light bulbs and filters and services and basic stuff. Now, what do you need to do? Oh, look at this. Employable clean driving record. Did that sound familiar? Same as the porter, right? Experience is desired, but not required. What do you think that means? If you roll up to the dealer, they may hire you as a lube tech, but a lot of times they're gonna say, do you have any experience? And if you say no, they're gonna be like, porter, boom, porter. Then we'll maybe let you move in. Once you become a lube tech somewhere and you roll into the dealership and they say experience, yeah, I was a lube tech here, you're probably gonna become a lube tech right away. Make sense? Once you get the experience, you don't need to get the experience again. But it's hard to get the experience the first time unless somebody gives you your first shot. That's the way it is. Make sense? Basic knowledge of automotive systems is required to properly inspect the vehicle. Do you understand what I'm saying there? So if you guys are doing your multi-point inspections, you should already know some of these things that we're going to do in the class, and I'm willing to bet a lot of you are doing them and you don't know these things. So we're going to go back to the basics, and you're going to understand how to do every aspect of the multi-point inspection. But the good news is it's only really going to take you a month to learn everything you need to know. That's a minimal training commitment to be able to do a really good job at this job. And for that, you're probably going to see If somebody could be trained to take your position within 2 to 4 weeks, you're probably not really worth a whole lot of money. Okay, it's just the way it is. And you should be able to use tools, torque, drain plugs, lug nuts, perform the basic maintenance. Who provides the tools? The job, yeah, the employer. Does anybody bring their own tools? Awesome, but that's up to you. You can do that, but you're not going to say that you had to bring your own tools, because that gets you into some labor stuff, okay? It's like some labor law things. So they're going to provide the tools. The tools might not be the best. You should by all means bring your own tools if they help you do the job. And if you're trying to get promoted to a line tech, you're going to probably want to start getting your own tools anyway, so it'd be good to start building up, especially if you can get them on discount. But generally, you don't have to have your own tools right here. Cool? It can be full-time or part-time. Would you agree? Anybody who's full-time? Lube techs who are full-time? At least a few. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Anybody who's part-time? See, it's a mix. You can be full-time or part-time, either one. So that way it's kind of flexible. Now, this might offend some people, but it's most likely going to be close to minimum wage. So porter, probably minimum wage. Lube tech, maybe minimum wage, but maybe a little bit more. Who can tell me if the lube techs make more than the porters at your dealers, yes or no? A little bit? Who pays the same? Some pay the identical same exact number. The porters make 18 or 19, and the lube techs make 18 or 19. Some of them are less, okay? But why do you think they didn't give a big pay raise right here? Because wouldn't you agree? I mean, it's more demanding, it's more technical, you need some training and stuff. Don't you think it should pay more? Yeah, and it could pay a little bit more, but if you look at the amount of knowledge you need to be a lube tech, what you need to be a porter is nothing right here. What you need to be a lube tech is like so much more. But when you look at what it takes to be a line tech, it's exponentially more. You understand? So that's the thing you got to understand. Porter to lube tech, you're thinking you're like pretty high on your hog, are you? We're here. That's like from here to here. And the line tech is like, a good line tech, a proper line tech who can do diagnosis, is like way the heck up there. It's not even close. And that's why this might be a bit offensive, but lube techs aren't really worth a whole lot more than minimum wage. You could argue it, you could pick it, you could do whatever you want, and it's probably not going to change. I'm just letting you know, because ultimately, if all of you were lube techs and you all quit, do you know what the employer would do? And they could probably train them in a couple weeks, and then that's it. And what are you really going to do at that point? I mean, and that's sad in a way. But here's the good thing: if you're a lube tech and you're doing a good job, they'll make it flexible. You could lead to promotion, and that's really the goal right there. To become a line tech, you really are going to have to come up through the lube tech ranks. It's just, they can't hire you as a line tech with no experience. We could do the most amazing job, and I think we do. I think we do the best. But just doing the work in school is not going to have you be ready to be a line tech. I don't know if that is a shock to you, but it's the truth.
We had, as an example, we had a student that got most, if not all, the ASEs. And had a very, very big, but kind of delicate ego. And people around him had graduated, this is a year ago, graduated and at the same time, and were getting promoted at both their dealer and the other dealers, and got upset, went to the manager.
Oh, I got you. I know who it is. I didn't know, but I do.
And said, I demand to be promoted or I'm leaving. And they said, hold on, came back and gave them their check. And to this day, he's still not employed.
Yeah. And it's sad, but the truth is the truth. We got to tell you the truth. It'd be amazing to be like, I want to skip all this lube tech stuff and just roll straight into the line tech, because you'll see line tech money in a second. It's a lot better, and it should be. But like, you are going to absolutely have to do the school training, the school certification, but you're 100% going to have to do the lube tech position. But mainly, honestly, your goal as a lube tech, you could take or leave my advice. It's fine. You won't hurt my feelings. should not be necessarily to go from $19 to $20 an hour. You should get as much money as you can. I'm all for you making as much as you can. But a $1 an hour raise, you know what that gets you?
$2,000 a year.
Well, yeah, that's if you're full time. Exactly, $2,000 a year. Do I see any Starbucks cups? Okay, that's all your $2,000 and then some per year if you become busted. Right there. That's your whole $1 an hour. That's your like. I went in there and I threw all my betting chips down on the boss's desk, and I'm like, I want $1 raise. And like, that's all you want to sell your soul? Here's your $1. Makes sense? That's it. You can have your Starbucks now. That was a perfect example. Okay, but in reality, this is what I would do, okay? You could take it or you could leave it. If it were me, I would take the lube tech job mainly to help work with the techs, so that I could eventually lead a promotion, right? The more experience you get, if it's a place where you can bust out a bunch of oil changes and they're kind of slow and you get permission, hey, can I go work with the line techs? That's worth any amount of money that they're gonna really throw at you, realistically. The more exposure you get, the better. So this would be the ideal goal. You're killing it in school, handling your stuff, passing all of your tests, you get the lube tech job. When the time is slow, you resist the urge to do the brainless scrolling because your brain rot needs attention. We need to just cut all that brain rot out of there, right? And instead you're like, you know what, it's slow. Can I go work with a line tech and help them? You can start to learn and be apprenticed, okay? What you really want to be is apprenticed. Then by the time your 2-year program's over, if you spend enough time with the line techs being apprenticed and you handled your business at school and you got your certifications, we have people all the time promoted to full-time, full flat rate line techs like immediately after graduation. It's very regular. We even have someone's brother that did that, right? So we got a lot of examples of this, but it comes through the lube tech spot. It just does. I wouldn't make this your goal for permanent. I'd make this like your stepping stone, but you got to do good at this before you can move up to the next level, okay? If that makes you want to drop, you should drop. You go ahead. There's too many people anyway. Here's what you could do though. Do some tires, patch some tires, do some rotates, do some basic things. I think Angelo right there is doing like brake bleeding or something. You might get to do some little extra stuff, especially as you're a little more experienced and seasoned. So for the lube techs here, who's done a tire repair? That's cool. Who would like to do a tire repair? Let's say you can learn to do that type of stuff. That's good. You guys are going to be going in the right direction. What about any sort of brake bleeding? Anybody ever help a line tech do brake bleeding? Yeah, so that's good. Learning on the job. That stuff is all great. It's amazing. You know what the next step is after lube tech? Yeah, apprentice would be good. And I'm going to jump more to like light line tech for now. And it depends on the place. But let's say we made it Longo. Longo has level 1 lube tech, and then they have level 2 lube tech. A lot of places have like the lube rack, and then they have, or TXM and TXM advanced. Or like lube rack low miles, and then they have high miles. This is gonna be ringing a bell to some of you. So the basic lube techs are doing the lube tech work. If a car comes in with the higher mileage, or it needs jobs that are under, let's say 2 hours, it might go to the line techs. So the light line techs might do a little bit of diagnosis, but it's going to be fairly simple diagnosis. It's not going to be big diagnosis. It might be visual stuff, leaks, these types of things. It might be brakes. It might be, you know, more simple tasks. Belts, hoses. The spark plugs was a good example. I don't normally see lube techs do spark plugs. I'd see the light line techs or the TXM advanced do spark plugs. That'd be pretty common. Kind of makes sense. This would be, who wants to do this job? This sounds more fun, I think, to me. I would rather be doing this job for sure. Probably a little more demanding though, wouldn't you say? Not as quite as repetitive, but this would be cool. At a lot of places, this is your step up, right? Hopefully you skip porter. Then you're gonna do probably lube tech a little bit over minimum wage. Let's make an hourly pay for the lube tech. What you thinking? 18, yeah, probably something like that. Anybody getting more than that? Shh, don't put your hands up. We'll catch you outside if you're making more than me. You know, we're all good for everybody making money until it exceeds us, huh? Exactly. So hopefully you're doing great, but 18 is about right. It just is what it is. Light line tech's probably gonna be a little bit more. It kind of depends. So depending on the dealer, if you go from a lube tech to a light line tech, sometimes this could be I don't know, maybe depends, 20 something. We'll just say 20 something dollars an hour. But look at the requirements. Employable, hey, wait a minute, that's needed for all of them, isn't it? Experience is required. So who has no experience? You can't do the job. There's no chance you can roll in and be a light line tech without experience. And the experience they really want light line tech experience. So how do you get light line tech experience without light line tech experience? You're probably going to need to be a lube tech and work your way into it. It's just the fact of the matter. Okay? And of course, the education and the certification level is going to be a really big help. And then, look at this. Often a completion of an automotive program is required, or at a minimum, strongly desirable. So it kind of depends on where you're at. If you were in the middle of rural West Texas and there were no schools around, they're probably going to make an exception. But you're not. You're here. There's schools. If you were someone who was going to school and passing your tests and getting your certifications, don't you think you're going to have an advantage against someone who's not doing that? Right? I mean, it just makes sense. The employer is really simple. They're going to try to hire the more qualified person. They're going to try to hire the person who's going to do a better job, have the cars fixed right the first time, have the cars not come back, right? And chances are the ones coming out of the school are going to be probably better, just as what it is. Make sense? And now, if you look, ASE certification is desired, but it may be required. So sometimes it's required. So for example, I'm going to put Longo on the spot again. You guys know Longo Toyota? You ever seen it? It's a beast. It's a monster. I don't even remember how many techs. I think there was do you know how many lube techs? I think there was 40.
Yeah, that's the right number.
Yeah, and I think there was 100 line techs. It's a massive, massive facility. It's awesome. You can't move to level 2 without, I think, 2 ASEs. Period. That's it. If you want to be a light line tech, you can't do it without the 2 ASEs. Period. There's no discussion to be had. Which I kind of like those expectations. At least you know what it is. You're not like, do I have to work here a year or 5 years or whatever and not know? It's like, there you go. Boom. You need a minimum 2 ASEs, and you need to be recommended by the regular lube tech team leader to move to the level 2. Make sense? So without the ASEs, you can't do that one, at least at Longo specifically. And also, you need to be able to reference service information, complete repairs with no assistance, okay? That's kind of different. So that's not exactly what an apprentice does. An apprentice gets the help. Apprentice probably makes lube tech money though. Light line tech makes more money, but can't be run around asking everybody for help. Makes sense? It comes with a cost. And guess what? Oh, you have to have your own tools. All right, so you guys, how much do you think you're going to spend on tools? If you spent the $100,000 and you got stuff on discount, you'd be balling. You'd have a nice setup, really nice. If you don't spend your money smart, $100,000 is probably what you need to spend. But if you buy stuff on discount, you could definitely spend way less. But then again, you got to actually be smart with your money. So you're going to spend a lot of money though. If anybody's thinking $1,000 or $2,000, that's funny. That's not even remotely close at all, even remotely. But it could be as high as potentially 100. I would say if you were really smart right now to be able to be a light line tech, I think on discount you could spend 10 and have yourself everything you needed. Toolbox, especially if you pass your ASEs, you can get the TechStream light cable, you get your meter covered, right? Like for $10,000 you could be rolling and well equipped. You could probably do it on half that. On $5,000 you could probably make it work. Occasionally though, you're gonna have to go to your friend and be like, hey, can I borrow that tool? And they're gonna be like, again, dude, really? Like you borrow it once, cool. You borrow it twice, this better be the last time. You come a third time, like, no, you gotta get it. Kind of makes sense. That's kind of common. But yeah, it's could be worth it, but it's probably gonna be full time though, that's the thing. So if you wanna be a light line tech and go to school, you know they're probably gonna need you there. What do you think about that?
Where would you recommend getting like used tools?
Let's hold that conversation for tools. We do actually cover tools, and I'd like to have that conversation, but it's a big one. All right. Light line techs, probably not going to work with your schedule, though. You understand? Do you know what light line techs do? They try to turn out a lot of cars. You know how many cars you turn out while you're in school? No cars, right? So like, this would be a good job as long as they can work with your schedule, but a lot of times they won't. So just be aware. It may not be flexible schedule, but the pay should be significantly above minimum wage. A lot of times it would often be double. Okay, so let me focus on what that means. Why do you think I'm saying double minimum wage? Anybody know? I'm driving at something. You know what that means? California state law, skilled labor, exactly. Skilled labor is double minimum wage. What's minimum wage now? I honestly don't know. $16.50. It probably is. Okay, if it's 16, and I think it depends on the county. If it's $16.50, that means you'd make $33 an hour. That's not bad money. You're gonna hustle for that, but like I said, you can't get there from here. Like you got to go through the process to get to that point. This is not bad money right here. You think that's enough to like make your dreams come true and stuff? Probably not. There's one way you could do it though, and it has to do with this flat rate thing. Do you guys sort of kind of understand flat rate-ish? No, okay, because we're going to cover it. The work is often completed within several hours. So if it's a light line, it's probably going to be like what I would call a gravy, right? The brakes, tires, belts, hoses, fluid, flushes, like that's all gravy work. It's not really complex. Engine removal and replacement, probably not. That's not light line. That's stuff that's going to take all day. So this is going to be a little bit more gravy jobs. The way you could make good money as a light line tech has to do with the flat rate system. You're going to be working on a bunch of cars. If each job pays a certain amount of time, this is your introduction to flat rate. Let's make this pay. Would you agree we wanted to do what, $33 an hour, correct? Yeah, we're at $33 an hour. I think this is a whiteboard. That was close. Oh, did I do that again? Shh. Oh, and I had to clean it. Oh my goodness. Okay, what do you want to name this person? Howard. Howard? Yeah. Howie. Howie, the light line tech. $33 an hour. What time you want to clock in? What time's work start? 7 o'clock. Click first time ticket. Clocks in at 7. And what's the job going to be? Light line tech. Okay. On what? Better be a Toyota. Oh, we could do a Prius. A Prius would be fun. Spark plug. Let's say it's a Prius. We'll do a whole job on a Prius. Spark plugs on a Prius, I think, might pay like 3 hours. You know why they pay more? Yeah, you got to pull the wipers and the cowl and a bunch of other stuff off. It just happens to be where the engine sits back. Let's do 3 hours for spark plugs. Sound fair? So I'll write the ticket up over here. Spark plugs. Let's do a 3.0. It probably needs coolant, right? Engine coolant. What other coolant does it need?
Hybrid battery coolant.
Yeah, exactly. Hybrid or inverter coolant. We'll probably do another hour for that. It probably needs a brake flush.
Check power steering.
Yep, and we check and it's electronic, and so we're like, oh crap, what can we sell? An electron flush? Don't sell power steering flush if it don't have it. Okay. Oh, you know what? It needs transmission fluid. The transmission's pretty easy, but we'll have it pay an hour too. This is a real gravy boat. Yeah, we'll do an oil change. What's the oil change pay? 0.7 for an oil change. You gravy sucker. Who pays 0.3? That's what I thought. We'll call that an LOF. How about that? And I'm sorry, I'm going to round it up. 0.5. That'd be pretty generous, but that includes the tire rotation though. So it's all right. An air filter, we could do an air filter. We'll call it an air filter. What's that pay? 0.2. What's wipers pay? A 0.1. Now what the heck does 0.1 mean? Do you know?
6 minutes.
Yes, exactly. 0.1 is 1/10 of an hour. How many minutes are in an hour? It ain't 100, people, 60. So if it's 1/10 of 1 hour, that means it's 6 minutes. Wipers, 12 minutes. Air filter, 6 minutes. Make sense? That's how you read that. This is the lingo. This is what you have to get used to. So that's a pretty good job right there. If we were to run this total, what do you think we come up with? 0.2, 3, 3.3, 4.3, 5.3, 6.3, 7.3, 7.8, right? That's a nice ticket right there. That's a big old gravy boat. That could be your whole day, and that's kind of the point. If you clock on at 7, boom, that's going to come up with a big 7.0, and you're going to work on this car until you're done. If you're hustling, when do you think you could finish it? Don't you be telling me no 8 o'clock. Okay, so you want to finish it at what, 11 or noon? Let's do 11. You're going to be on at 7, off at 11. But what about your scrolling time? Oh, what about the restroom? You had to go potty. You had to go potty, but you also were like, well, let me just check my social media real quick. Next thing you know, it's been 15 minutes. Okay, if you're going to finish this by 11, you're not going to be doing any of that. Do you understand the lesson there? If you want to take your time and goof around, fine. But Howie right here is hustling. So Howie finished at 11. Okay, cool. 11. And then let's just say Howie kind of got that attitude of like, that's your whole day right there. So from 11 to 12, punch back off at 12. We did like slacking right here, slacking off. Slacking. Okay. Go to lunch for how long? You're entitled an hour. You're at an hour and 20.
Well, it's at an hour, but most take an hour.
Ooh, okay. All right. Howie, I was impressed with Howie, but I don't know about Howie. Okay, from 12 to 12.3, 1.3. I would personally do the 12 to 12.3, but we'll go with a 1.3. That's going to be 120 something. Big lunch, eh? Lunch plus nap. We'll say nap. How about that? Okay, cool. All right, let's pause right there. We're at the midday, lunch is over. You clocked in at 7, you clocked out for lunch. How many hours is 7 to, well, let's say 7 to 11 is 4 hours, right? In 4 hours, you were clocked in 4 hours, but you finished this whole big job. That's part of the lesson. If you're a flat rate light line tech and you had a 7.8 hour ticket and you did it between 7 and 11, you're clocked in 4 hours, but what do you get paid for? 7.8. Exactly. Do you understand flat rate now? Flat rate sounds really good, doesn't it? If you're hustling. And there's a little bit more to the lesson, right? So here's how the light line tech could make decent money. $33 an hour. Who could do this? Calculators are allowed right now. 33 times 7.8. Come on, give me the real number. I want the actual dollars and cents. Then we're going to tax it too. Let's see. $257? You were really close. $257. We'll even round down. $257 by lunchtime. But then you notice how he kind of fell off and was like, you know what, at 11, I was just like, man, that was my whole day. Psh, let me just get a little scrolling in. You know what I'm saying? Watch a little tiki-taki, little Insta-crackle, little snap-crackle, little whatever these things are now. Okay, my face tube, a little bit of this. Okay, boom. Slacking off. What did Howie get paid from 11 till noon? Nothing. Howie was clocked in though. But not producing, you could say nothing. All right, it's a little more complicated than that. I'll actually explain it. Then it was like, hey, lunchtime. Like you said, hey, text and go to lunch, hour and 20 minutes. And clocked out at noon, came back at 1.3. Howie still hasn't made any more hours, and now it's 1.3. So you clock back on your next job at a 1.3, and I don't know, what's the job? Let's make something up.
4 wheels on a line.
That would have been a gravy job right there, but you know what happened? He shipped the car, and all of a sudden they got like a warning light, and they realized maybe something went on with the inverter coolant. They didn't do the inverter coolant right. That car's back. So the Prius is back in the stall. Howie's going back over, checking the Prius back out, like, oh, what did I do wrong? What did I mess up? What did I do? The car's not running right. It's misfiring. What do you think? Howie's got to figure it out, right? Does a whole bunch of testing and all that type of stuff. You know what Howie finds out? When he went to put the spark plugs in, he dropped it and bent the little electrode up, and it was kind of touching, and it wasn't really firing, and it took 3 hours to figure that out. Okay, from 1.3, 2, 3, 4.3, we're just going to say diag the comeback. Okay, makes sense? This right here, as a flat rate tech, it may be unpaid. Like, you did the job, you screwed the spark plugs up, we're not paying you to do it again. Make sense? So I thought you guys liked flat rate. Exactly. But this is the thing, it's a mentality, it's a whole lifestyle, it's a way of thinking. Make sense? So like doing the job fast is good, but if you drop the spark plug because you were rushing and now you got to redo the job, yeah, you were way ahead over here, then you were slacking, then you were snoozing, and now you're fixing what you screwed up earlier. Luckily, that job paid 7.8 because now it's 4:23 and you just finally figured that out. So what are you going to do for the rest of the day? Clock out and call it a day? If you clock out and call it a day, you got paid 7.8 hours, but looks like you might have been clocked in. By the time you clock out at 5, you were actually there for probably longer. Make sense? So in the purest form of flat rate, you only get paid for what you do. Make sense? And if you mess it up, you're probably not going to get paid to fix your own problem. Fair? But that's not Howie. Howie's changed his ways. Howie gave up. Right here was slacking. He quit tiki-taki. He quit it. And right here, he's like, you know what? I'm going to start packing my lunch. From now on, I'm pack my lunch, but I can't get these hours back. Start packing my lunch. I'm going to make this less. All right, to finish strong, the car comes in, and he's like, you know what? I had a rough day. I'll stay late. What car comes in next? Yeah, the car needs 4 brakes and an alignment. What do you guys want brakes to pay? Front brakes. Replace the pads. Probably pays an hour. That's some dirty pad slapping business. Customer's going to come back with some noises and stuff. So replace the pads, cut the rotors. Anybody know the labor?
2 hours.
Hey, I like that more. Front 2 hours, rear 2 hours. What do you want to pay for the alignment? All right, so front, rear, align is a 5-hour ticket, right? So you get a 5-hour ticket. How long do you think you could knock that out? Wow. Hustling. I don't know how he's changed his ways, but how he's not Superman. Okay, so let's say 4.3, 5.3. Let's do a 6.3. Are you willing to work till about 6:20 something? Well, maybe yes, maybe no, but that's kind of the thing. For the employer, they're going to want somebody like, hey, the customer said they'd buy the front and rear brakes and the alignment, but they need it done today. That's typically what the customer wants. They don't want to be like, yeah, do all this work and leave and let me come back like later. They want it done soon. Make sense? So Howie's like, you know what? I'm reformed. Give me that job. That'd be a 6.3. So what's Howie flag in for the day? Oh, they clock out at 6.3. That first was a 7.8. The second was a 5.0, right? So what's 7.8 plus 5.0? 12.8 hours at $33. Give me that math.
422.4.
422. We'll go with that. 422. Does anybody know how many days you typically work in a year? You can do a few different ways. How about this? Let's do this is good money for a light line tech, okay, but we'll go with it. 422 times 5. Can anybody do that? 2,000 what? 422 times 5. Come on. 2,000 how much?
110.
2,110? Yeah, that's right. 2,110 a week. Who wants that type of money? That'd be amazing. You got to pay taxes, but that'd be good. You can make money as a light line tech. It's not to say you can't, but how did the light line tech really make the money? $33 an hour is good money, but it's not great money. So how he make the big bucks? got lucky, screwed up, changed his ways, and got lucky. Hustled the whole day. Make sense? Except for the sleeping and the slacking. But it was like running full speed, then kind of screwed up, then running full speed. What if they didn't screw up right here? They could have actually made more. Make sense? So that was how much per week? 2,200? Exactly. So that's like 100,000 something a year. But guess what? There's going to be days where you're not going to get the good jobs, and you're not going to end up with no 12.8 something in that day.
What about flag rate when like a day after the dealer's like dead?
Okay. I think I have to address that. I'm good with that. All right. So let's just say, let's just hold on that, and we'll go. We'll do it. We'll do it with Howie. Howie makes the same amount of money. We'll run it really simple. So here's your time card. You clock in at 7, and what's the first job going to be on a day that's dead?
10K.
Okay, what's that pay?
Auto change and servicing 0.7.
Okay, how long is it going to take?
30 minutes.
Okay, so you could finish it at a 7.5. That's 7:30, and this is a 10K, and it paid 0.7. And you recommend some stuff, and they didn't buy it,
An hour each.
and they didn't buy it,
I didn't buy it.
and they're dead. It's dead. They're dead today. Yeah. So then you clock back, you clock off, you clock back on at 7:30, right? You don't take a break right there. You clock right back on, off of the first job, onto the second. What's the second job?
A 5K.
5K because it's dead.
It's dead. Okay. The 5K. What's a 5K pay? You guys know the difference? 10K is oil change, rotate. 5K is just the rotate. A 0.4. Okay. 5K is a 0.4. How long does it take you?
15 minutes.
Yeah. I'm going to take a little bit longer. How about, let's make it an 8.0. Let's say you took a half an hour because you made a bunch of recommendations because you're trying to get work, and you know what they're like? Nah, the economy's sketchy. I ain't buying it. Okay, great. You spent this time doing the video MPI. Hey, here's your plate. Here's your car. Your brakes are shot. Everything else is shot. You should buy something. They're like, nah, I don't want to buy them. I'm out of here. Just do my rotate. It's free. That's all I want. Okay, boom. And then let's just say, ooh, all right. You clock right back in, 8.0. In fact, you assume that you clock in and out and right back in. Boom. TPMS light. And what'd you find on that?
There was no nails. It was cold outside, so the tire pressure dropped.
Yeah, the tire pressure's low. What are you going to bill a customer to set the tire pressure? You ain't going to bill them nothing. So there you go. How long did you spend on it?
I spent like 30 minutes looking for.
All right, 8.5. You looked for nails. You soaked the tires, all that type of stuff. You get paid a free 99. 0.0. Okay. And let's just say at this point we pause. You've been clocked in for how long? An hour and a half. Clock time is 1.5. Right? Because you were in 7 to 8:30. Okay. How much time have you flagged? 7.4. Okay. 1.1. Are you winning or losing? You're getting beat by the clock, especially because that TPMS thing, and the service advisor's like, no, I didn't get diag time because it's just tire pressure. And you're like, well, the lube techs are supposed to set it, but the lube techs couldn't think their way through it, so you get involved as the light line tech. This stuff happens. Okay, pause right there. What do you think is going to happen to your pay right there? What you going to get paid for? In the state of California, you're going to get paid 1.5. But you only flagged 1.1. So how happy is your boss? Be like, hey, what's up? Your productivity is what we call below 100%. If you're 100% productive, that means you clock in 1.5 and you flag 1.5. But if you clock in 1.5 and you flag less than that, you're less. I actually don't know what this number is. You may be about 70-something% efficient. That's not good as a light line tech. That would not be good. See how, so now the dealer's paying you, but you're kind of losing money. A lot of times you won't get bonuses and stuff. It affects your pay. So let's say this whole thing goes all the way out through the day. You end up clocked in for an 8.0. And you end up, I think actually, I can remember my lowest day, I think was a 1.7. I can mostly remember exactly what happened. It was Christmas Eve. and we had a snowstorm in New York, and nobody came in except for like one oil change in the morning, and it was on a 4-wheel drive so they could make it in. And then I had a car towed in for a battery. It was towed in for a no start, just ended up being a battery. And I think I did some really lame like basic recall. If I flagged 1.7 in some states, like where I came from, you got paid 1.7. I spent the whole entire day there. So if you get paid 1.7 at $33 an hour, you guys help me out. What do we make for the day? It's 1.7 hours at $33 an hour. What'd you make for that day? 66? 56. 56 whole dollars. Don't spend it all in one place. It's a double-edged sword. On the good days, it cuts right through. On the bad days, it cuts you. Make sense? However, in here, well, what actually happened was some line techs went to the state labor board and they sued the dealership. So it doesn't work that way. You'd actually not get paid this. This would be like, this is like what you should get paid, but instead of like you had 8 and you make 33. So what's 8 hours at $33 an hour? We're back at that 260 something. 260. You will get paid 264. But in reality, you probably only should have got paid 56. And so right here, there's this thing, it's called unapplied labor. So the dealer will pay you for your clock time, but it'll look really bad statistically, like really bad. And if you have a lot of these low productivities, that's when you're going to get in trouble. Make sense? So as a lube tech, you're just paid hourly, and they do look at your productivity, but they don't expect you to be very high. Does anybody know what their productivity is as a lube tech right now?
Like the highest or the lowest? Because it varies.
Both. I want to know.
Highest probably like 90.
90 is really good as a lube tech.
Lowest like 60.
Yeah, those aren't bad. 60s, 70s, like doing decent, actually.
I believe for flat rates, if you don't hit 90%, you get rid of nut. And
Yeah.
the third time, I think you get hard.
All right, so take that in. You hear that. If you're a lube tech, you really want to be hitting 70%. And so if you were to look at the lube tech numbers, you know, let's say that each job pays 0.5. If you work 8 hours, you're probably going to be doing like 16 cars to hit 100%. Depends on exactly what the cars pay, right? As a light line tech, you have to try to come up with those hours. If it's slow, there's nothing you could do. But if the work is there and you're underperforming and you're just thinking you're going to rake in this $33 an hour indefinitely because you have your own tools and stuff, it doesn't really work that way. You got to be able to try to hit those numbers. Sometimes you won't, but you got to at least hit them as often as possible. If everybody's missing their numbers, you're good. But if people are hitting their numbers and you're missing their numbers, you know what Mr. Clyde called that?
Low-hanging fruit.
The low-hanging fruit. You don't want to be the low-hanging fruit, okay? So that's your little mini lesson on the flat rate. We cover it in a little bit more detail, but you have to understand that to understand some of the next ones. Everything from here out will be flat rate pay. Mostly the light line technicians are too. Who wants to be heavy line tech? Anybody? That's cool. Get to do big jobs and stuff. Heavy line tech is probably going to make a little bit more than the light line tech because the jobs are a little bit tougher. You can see engines, transmissions, differential stuff. Sometimes you do overhaul. This is actually in the shop. Remember these guys doing this job. A lot of times you do like diagnosis, but maybe not a lot of major electrical diagnosis. It'd be more like it misfires, you do the compression test, you find it has worn piston rings. Still diagnosis, but it's just a little bit different. Cool, fun work. Would you rather do this or the brakes? Kind of depends. It is and it isn't. It kind of, if you can keep your head straight on where the parts go, this isn't bad. But if you get kind of confused and you end up putting stuff together wrong and taking it apart and put it together, you're not going to make your hours. Make sense? So yep, same employable driving record. You need to have experience. You need to have finished the program, more than likely. ASE certifications desired, probably required. Most likely, you're going to have to work independently, your own tool. It's kind of the similar responsibilities of a light line tech. But a lot of times, they're going to want experience doing the heavy line type of work. Make sense? almost always full-time, probably not flexible. So if you want to be a heavy line tech, you're probably not doing that and coming to school being T10 student. It just doesn't work that way. They need you there full-time every day. You can't be like, oh yeah, I'm going to start this engine today, but then I got to go to school for 3 days and then I'll come back and that customer will be perfectly fine without their car for all those days. I don't think so. So, right, this is what you could work into. This is not what you do when you start. Probably going to be significantly above minimum wage, probably double. And if we were hitting 32 as a light line tech, I'd expect this to be more $36, $38 an hour. So you could make more. But do you actually make more in your paycheck? That's my question to you. Depends, doesn't it? Because we added a third dimension. Usually you're looking at how much money you make per hour and how many hours you clock in, right? But now you got to look at how many hours you produce in the flat rate system. So some of these jobs pay good and some of them don't pay great. So you guys know they recalled a bunch of Tundra engines? You guys know they're taking engines out, putting the engines in? Anybody know what that pays? Yeah, I think it's like 13.3 or something. It's 13 and change hours. If that takes you 2 days, do you see the problem there? In 2 days, how many hours would you normally work? If you clock in 16 hours and you've only done 13.3 hours worth of engine replacement, do you see how you're not really in good standing? So the Tundra engine recall, you'd have to hustle to really do it in 1 day. There are people who can do it in 1 day, but most of them can't. And if you just take a full 2 days, you're kind of in trouble, right? So this work can be good, but when it's under warranty, it's hard to make the hours. If that was a customer pay job, it'd probably be like a 25-hour job. And if you did it in 2 days, you'd be balling. You'd be like, yeah, I'm killing it, right? So it's kind of a little bit more stressful, but do you think that you could grab somebody off the street and train them and shove them right in there to do that job? Not likely, right? So it's a little more secure. A little more supply and demand means you're probably going to get a little more money. So if you can make the $38 an hour doing this, maybe that's better than 33 as a light line tech. Kind of depends on you specifically. That's part of the reason we do the presentation. This isn't necessarily better than a light line tech. It's different. Make sense? And then the other thing is, a lot of times you might only service one car per day. In this aspect, I liked. It's a little bit frustrating to hustle and move cars and go get another car and get another car. This one's like, look, I'm going to make my whole day's pay on this one big job. I kind of like that myself, but that doesn't mean you do. Cool. And a lot of times it's heavier and dirtier too. So then you got to think of yourself. If you're cool with being the Charlie Brown Pigpen, what's his name? Pigpen? Always going around with the dirt all over like that. This is good. This will be just fine. But if you're planning to leave work and go directly to your favorite hangout, or go to your friends, or be like, hey, you guys, let's go do a canyon run and then stop by at the place we usually go at after the region, which is Knoll Woods or something. Like, you probably don't really want to be doing a whole bunch of heavy line work and then stop by the burger place. Like, you're going to be a mess, you know? So, and if your back is a little sketchy, some of you raised your hands, this might not be the one for you. Okay, but it might be the one for some of you. Okay, or a chassis brake technician, and this doesn't exist in Toyota land. Are we clear? Toyota doesn't have people who do brake and chassis. Do you know who does though? Where's the tire shops? Where are my tire shop people at? They'll have people that do that. You know, somebody's on that alignment rack busting out alignments. That's this type of person. Brake, front end, you know, they'll do that type of work. Steering, suspension, alignment, brakes, wheels, tires, etc. Do measurements, precision measurements, maybe a little bit of ABS, VSC, similar type of electronic system diagnosis. But this is not a person who's doing an engine. Make sense? You might roll up to this guy and be like, hey, dude, I need my engine replaced. And be like, huh? Brakes? Alignment? Huh? Tires? TPMS? Huh? Engines? No. So it's a specialty position, not super common. And in Toyota, it's non-existent. When I worked in the Chevy dealer, we had a guy that did this. And he was really good. And he made really good money. But this is the problem. If you have a car, if this is how you want to run your dealership, you can. If you have a car and it needs the recall, the maintenance, and it needs brakes done, you're going to send the maintenance to the lube techs. Then you need the recall. That needs to go to a line tech. Then the line tech's going to do that, and then it's going to be held up until the front end tech can get to do the front end work. And that front end tech's busy right now, so what's the car doing? Sitting, waiting. You know what? The customer wants the car. So the way that a lot of the dealers have gone, and the way that pretty much all the Toyota dealers are, they want to give this to one person. Who could be the one person for me right now? Who could be it? Raise your hand if you'll be it. Okay, boom, you do the maintenance, you do the recall, you do the front end work. Done. It's not sitting, it's not down. You don't stop this job until it's done. How's that benefit the customer? Gets done faster. If it gets done faster, it's kind of a win-win for everybody, right? That's why you're all going to be bumper to bumper techs if you really do this. Just the way it is. Cool. So kind of similar. Maybe it's kind of similar but a little bit different, and maybe at a specialty shop, like an alignment shop, tire shop, brake shop, these types of places. But it's going to be a lot of similar requirements. Full-time, not flexible. It may be double minimum wage. Probably going to be working a bunch of cars per day. Just a little bit different. Now, electrical and drivability techs are different. And by many assessments, this is kind of like the top dog, if you would say. So if you get a car that comes in and they need a lot of like complex diagnosis, there's fewer and fewer people who are good at diagnosis. The person who could do the front end and the brakes doesn't mean that they're going to diagnose the electrical fault. Makes sense? Where you guys are going to be challenged in Toyota is they want you to be able to do this too. So it's almost like you need to be good at everything. However, even the Toyota dealers have their people that are the best at this. All right, so this would more be in Toyota land like an MDT. An MDT is a Master Diagnostic Tech. I'm going to show you on the certification system. So you're going to be, probably a team leader or something. You're going to get the problem cars. Sometimes an electrical tech is different than a drivability tech, but a lot of times they're kind of the same. A lot of times they're good at both types of diagnosis. It kind of depends, but look, both require high skill level and training. So this is like the highest skill level, the highest training, the most certified, a lot of times some of the most experienced. And if you think of all those things, think of what that means. Like, look at this guy. Diagnose, replace, maintain, identify faults with an electrical wiring diagram, computer-based things, a lot of scan tool type of work, right? Working with the meter. Who wants to do this? And that's good. And this is more problems, though, you understand? Who likes to put their music on and just kind of like chill their brain out and like do a repetitive task? This ain't it. Okay, this is like you're locked in, you're focused. People come to you for one thing, problems. I got a problem, can you help me? Like, well, I'm jamming out right now. Like, just let me do my thing. Like, you can't be just doing your thing and be like really thinking about this complex problem and listening to people, and it's not, this isn't for everybody. But if you like problem solving, you like dealing with problems, this could be really good. Cool. And so if you were to look a little bit more, you may be dealing with computer-controlled engine systems, going deep into service information, sometimes even dealing with like intermittent type things, intermittence and faults and warning lights. Remember Mr. Clyde talked about check engine light? Where did you guys learn how to diagnose check engine lights? What class? You remember? The final semester mostly. Electrical a little bit, but it's more in that final class. That's when students tend to like fall off a little. They're kind of burned out. That's the class that gets you to this. All right, so what are the positives of this though? Right, they're going to do oscilloscopes and all this types of things. You think you could do this type of work and then leave work and go in for the canyon speed limit, obeying, run, and then roll into the burger place and still look clean? You're going to get dirty doing this. You could still look clean. Like this is, if you got the bad back, this would be great. If you don't want to be dirty, this would be great. If you're not looking to do really heavy, hard labor, this will be great. What's doing the labor in this situation?
Like,
Big brain muscles and knowing how to use the special tools. Like this isn't a real physical job. It's still kind of physical, but not like heavy line and light line. You don't have to work physically doing the work as much as thinking, understanding, troubleshooting. This is Mr. Clyde's baby, really. Same with the drivability tech. So similar to the electrical tech, the drivability tech's more dealing with like the car doesn't have power, the car has a check engine light, the car intermittently stalls, it's a crank no start, it's these types of things. Problems. Again, it's not like you look at the brakes and the brake pads are thin and you have to replace them. Make sense? This is much more complex, much more detailed, much more training, much more certified. What do you think that means for pay? This is going to be typically the highest paid technician in the shop. That's just the way it is, right? Almost always full-time, not flexible. Pay is going to be significantly above minimum wage, probably the most high paid in the shop. So like at a Toyota dealer, what kind of money do you think this person would make? MDT level type of stuff. 40 something, and it might be 50s. Yeah, exactly. So does that mean more money for you? But assuming you're good at it though, am I right? Because what if you spend a whole bunch of time doing diagnosis and it takes you a long time? It's kind of hard to bill. So if you can do this and you're good at it and you're talking $50 an hour and you can do 8 to 10 hours, you want to do the math? This would be a fun one to do the math. All right, let's say that you're the electrical drivability tech and you clock in 8 hours, but let's say, sorry, Howie, you're out. Howie it was good while it lasted, Howie, but Howie's gone. Who do you want to name this? Bow. Okay, Bow's a good answer. Bow.
He's a beast.
He probably is, yeah. All right, but this won't be actual Bow. This will be hypothetical Bow. Let's make Bow $50 an hour, even though we have a suspicion that Bow may not be 50. But let's just go with 50, okay? Bow might be higher, but this Bow is 50. How many hours do you expect Bow to be able to produce in the flat rate system? I'm okay with whatever your answer is. All right, 10 hours a day. Let's do it in two different ways. So if it's 10 a day, and by the way, do you guys know, well, we'll do it per week, okay. 10 hours at 50 an hour. How much is that? 500 a day. How many days a week are you gonna work? 5, so that's 2,500 a week. 52 a year. How much? Did I do that right? Yeah, okay. What's 2,500 times 52? Did I do that right? For some reason that seems wrong to me. 5, 10 times 50 is definitely 500. Yeah, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. What's 2,500 times 52? Come on, do the calculator. Okay, so let's say 130, and that's doing 10 hours a day. So that would be okay, you know. That would be like, hey, you've reached MDT, but maybe you're not like the best MDT. I would say rather than 10 hours a day, you know what I think is more realistic? I don't know. What do you think how do you think they'll do if they did, let's say, like 12 hours a day? Let's do it at 12. How about 12 at 50? How much are they making per day?
600.
600. What's 600 times 5?
3,000.
3,000 a week. What's 3,000 times 52? 156,000. Did you know that technicians can make that type of money? It's not exaggerating. All right, now you want a little bit more of a exceptional case. Let's say it was the Bow we think it is. Mr. Clyde's probably right. He's probably not at this number. Bow is actually, though, the shop foreman, like Bow's top of the top. Let's say he's at 60. And let's say he could do how many hours a day? More than 12? Let's say he's at 14. Okay, how about that? At 14. What's that number? What's 60 times 14? 840? 840. How about times 5?
4,200.
4,200, not 42,000. What's 4,200 times 52? What? 200 something? As soon as you hear 200 something, that proves the lesson, okay? So if you were to really get to the top of the top of the top, just so you know, there's technicians in the shop who are 200,000 a year. Are they common? No. But again, you noticed we started with the porters. All they have to be able to do is show up to work and not crash the car. The lube techs need some technical ability. The light line techs, the heavy line techs, all the way down into the drivability techs, and then the top of the line drivability techs. And that number is, what happened to that number though? I mean, it's exponential. It goes up a little, it goes up a little, and then it's like, boom, boom, way more. Makes sense? And those are real, actual examples.
How long would you say that timeline is? Like,
Great answer. Mr. Clyde's got that one.
It's doable in 3 years. 5 to 7 is more common. Sometimes it takes longer. There's a lot of, we can cite examples. There's a student at not a dealer not too far from here who graduated in 2021?
Oh,
2019, right?
yeah, probably about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I was
yeah.
remembering you're doing my tires on the Camaro then.
Graduated 6 years ago, is assistant shop foreman, and easily is between Bow and that other person, the
Yeah.
imaginary person.
Maybe not quite Bow, but up there.
And that's 6 years. And he's been doing that for 3. So, got that position 2.5 years ago. So you can make good money. I was in Salt Lake City for a regional conference, and a former master diagnostic tech who's 27 years old is now one of us at the Shoreline College outside of Seattle, near the Boeing plant. So, and when you go to the region, you're going to see almost everybody there was a former T10 student, and most of them from here. And they get a company car and a salary, and some of them, I mean, how old?
Giovanni.
Jonathan is.
Oh yeah,
Jonathan's
probably
like 37, 38. So
Yeah, he's pretty low.
he was a tech for about 10 years, and then he's been with Toyota now for at least 8 to 10 years. And we have another student who,
Yeah.
Elijah, who graduated in 2017, and he was at the dealer for 3 or 4 years, got hired by Toyota in their service department at corporate in Texas, but now it works for Lexus and does all their special events. And I'm kind of jealous because he's going where I used to go but can't afford to, which is Pebble Beach. He's going to Pebble Beach because Lexus has a big tent there, and he's going to set up the cars and be put up for that car week. So that's what he's doing, and he's maybe 31 or 32 now. So
Yeah.
So
If that actually.
yeah, he maybe he's only around 30.
Yeah.
So things can happen. I mean, how old are you?
32.
Okay, so. But by 42, you could be. No, I'm serious though. By 42, you could be working at the region.
Yeah, it's true.
And how old are you?
19.
19. By like the example of Rafi, who's 27, you could have my job.
Yeah.
I'm retiring, so if somebody here potentially, or somebody from previous T10 could take my spot in a couple of years. So, and they probably will only have been out there for maybe 10.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you can move up a lot faster than. Remember, like back in the day, you used to sweep the floor, and then you used to maybe do the oil change, and then hand the tools, and like those days are so gone. People lose interest faster than that. But the good news is there's been a lot of opportunities to move up and move up and move up. So make sure you guys are very clear. You're not all going to make $200,000 a year in 5 years, but the potential's there. But the responsibility really falls on you. So with some industries, it's like teaching, for example. I'll trash us a little bit. The way you make more money in teaching, 2 ways. How much education you have and how many years you've been there. None of those at all apply to automotive. In automotive, it's all about how much money can you negotiate per hour, which really has to do with certification levels and somewhat, your ability to negotiate. But then it really has to do with how many hours you can produce per day, per week. How active, how productive can you be? Make sense? It's totally different. If you get a teaching job, you'd say, when will I make 100,000? And you can look on the schedule and say, well, in your first year you make this, your second, third, we can't tell you that for automotive because it's very dependent on how your time card looks. Remember the time card? If you're scrolling and if you're taking a long lunch and these types of things, that's going to affect your pay. So if you have a number in your mind you want, it's a little bit hard to say when you could get that, but we've shown you on the low end, we've got people who go into the manager's office and say, I demand X, Y, and Z, and they say, here's your check, and their paycheck is unemployment. And then you got other people on the exceptional end who are like just very well qualified, very well certified, really good at their job, really ambitious, and they're also at a dealer that's very busy and always has a lot of work for them, and they can do extremely well. And there's at least 10 people that I could come up with that are making that type of money. But there's 10 of them, and there's probably 100 people who are making a lot less, and there's probably 1,000 lube techs who are making a lot less than that. So don't think that just happened. You don't just like one day like, oh wow, accidentally I showed up and now I make 200,000. If that's what you want, you could do it. There's really nothing stopping you except you, basically. Make sense?
Choices.
Yeah, your decisions can be good or bad, and sometimes they're bad. And sometimes you pay the price for that and you get that speeding ticket and that exhibition of speed, and then your paycheck is unemployment. And you're not going to be the new bow.
With this six-figure salary, like even with it, you still have to keep up with your ASCs and like all.
Oh, for sure.
Never stop.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, for us too. You have to maintain. When you pass your ASE, it's good for 5 years. 5 years later, you got to go recertify it and recertify it and recertify it. And there's new e-learning, and you do the new e-learning and the next e-learning and the next e-learning. And we're going to get you a lot of Toyota credit doing the program, but then you still have to go back and do some new model stuff. So it's never like, boom, I hit it, now I can let off and coast. That day never, that's not a thing, So don't think we're trying to sugarcoat it and say like automotive is easy. Automotive's not easy at all. But remember how we started with the horse and carriage thing? Automotive is not that. So my mom thought it was that. And it's definitely not that. However, I'll be really honest, I feel like I a lot of times don't really fit in public anymore. Like, you guys ever go to Costco?
Yeah.
Do people walk slow or am I losing it? Okay, like I can barely handle it. I'm just like, seriously, like I've got a list, this, boom, this, boom, this, boom, and they're kind of like those people, they can't do this. Makes sense? So just understand, if you want to be good at the other thing this is really good at is if you get in the flat rate system and you understand how to make your money and you understand how to manage your time and you understand like rechecks and redoing your work has a cost because you're the one who has to pay for it the second time, it can really sharpen you. It can really make you good at running a business. And then next thing you know, you're essentially, in a lot of ways, you're functioning as an independent contractor at the dealership. They only pay you for the hours you flag. I mean, if you really wanted to go off and go into starting your own business, this is a really good path to get you in that mindset. Like, I have some friends and family friends who their whole dream was to be a business owner, but like they never did this process. They have no business running their business. I promise you. They're like not even remote. They just think like, oh, we messed it up, we'll just redo it. It's sort of like, do you realize that's costing like a lot of money? Like you that's what I'm saying. And they never developed it. It'll probably cause you a lot of stress, but this will really sharpen you and make you into, the person you're telling us you want to be. You're also going to get really fast at Costco. And back in the day, I would have everything all labeled. I'd have all the labels face up. And then I'd go through and they'd be like, wow, thank you. Boop, 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 boop. My goal is always, whoever checks out in front of me, my goal is to be past them before we're out the door. And I do it like most of the time. But there's no reason for it. It just kind of reprogrammed my brain. I don't have to do that. I'm going to tell you to really do it. It's going to change the way you think. And then you're going to be irritated with people, at your job who don't have that same mindset and they can barely get anything done. And next thing you know, some of you are struggling with your ad paperwork and they're like, do another form and do a different form and do another form. And it's sort of like, oh, wow, you all really need to go get like a real job for a while and fix this and then come back and then they'd be all right. Kind of makes sense.
Related to this, so those of you that are at the dealer, think about the bows, the MDTs. Where do they go for lunch?
They don't.
Yeah, they don't.
Exactly.
They don't. They either work through it, or if they have the time, they'll take lunch. But what are they doing? They're reading the latest TSBs. They're doing the newest e-learning. So they're doing the new model. They're not saying, hey, let's go out to lunch, and they're gone for the hour and a half when you get an hour. That's not an MDT. And the people who are doing that are not going to be MDTs. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many MDTs at Penske?
I believe it was, so we got Emilio, Val, we got Kevin,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's 4, I believe.
Yeah, out of about 50 techs?
50.
Yeah, so it's always about 10%.
Yeah.
And so there's some where there's a lot of MDTs, but usually it's about 10%.
Yeah.
And it's not that the 90% can't do it, but they make other choices. They'd rather go to lunch. It's easy to go to lunch. It's harder to put in the time to be at that higher level of figuring the harder stuff out. Okay. But it's a choice. It's not that you can't do it. Everybody could do it, but you have to make the choice. So
Yeah, and the sacrifice too.
yeah. So
Yeah, you guys can do it though. We know you can. We just want to make sure you know what it's going to actually take, and it's not just going to happen.
But on the other part of it is you could see from the numbers, a very good line tech is extremely valuable, and
Yeah.
you can make over $100K a year as a line tech.
Mm-hmm.
But at age 50, being a line tech versus an MDT is going to be a lot tougher.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me,
Yeah.
because you're at 30 doing all that work, doing 4 brake jobs, doing alignment, changing struts.
Yeah.
It's
It's fun.
set of
It's
tires.
fun.
But when you're 50, 55, 60 to do all that heavy stuff,
Mm-mm.
you're gonna go home and you'll sit down and then you won't be able to get back up. So you laugh now, but you'll find out.
Yeah, but it's true. It is. You guys got to think about that. You really do. That's a for real thing. And you'll see some of the line techs at the job. They're kind of, especially when they're more at that age and they've made their whole lifestyle on that type of money. They can't afford to not do it anymore. And you know what that makes them feel? They feel kind of bitter. You ever notice some of the more senior line techs that aren't necessarily MDTs? They're like, oh, this job sucks. It's horrible. And that's sort of like, don't you own your own home, have cars paid off, have sent your kids to college? What do you mean this sucks? You accomplished all the things people are trying to do. But you know what? They don't feel that good because they're hurt. They're beating themselves up to do it. It was great, though, when they were young. I'm sure it was. Okay, so just think of all the things we're telling you. Now, electrical and drivability. Anybody want to be a smog tech? That would be a pretty good idea. It's really A6, A8, L1. L1's a beast. Okay, don't let off. People, what'd you get? 7 that passed?
5.
Still, 5 is a good number. 5 is a lot because in the past we had one cohort with 1 pass, as I recall. So L1's a beast. If you can pass L1, you could do a smog class and go get your smog license. That would be actually a pretty smart move because as you're a little bit older, you might say, hey, you know what? I don't want to be busting out all the struts and alignments and brakes. Like, I'll do smogs on used cars because my back hurts. So there are things you can do to make this work for you as you get a little bit older or as you get a little bit more tired or these types of things. This would be one thing that we'd really recommend. Or you go the direction of another specialist, like a transmission specialist. Toyota doesn't have these. But there are people that do transmissions, and that's all they do. They just do transmissions, and that's it. A lot of times, it would be a transmission shop, though. So it's not like They do occasionally have some in the new car dealers. So like if it's a Ford dealer, they may have someone who does transmissions within the dealer, but there's usually only one. And Toyota doesn't do it like that. Toyota's bumper to bumper. And we don't get super involved in the transmission overhauls, but you will need to do the diagnosis. You will need to do the removal and the reinstallation. But this is another job you could consider. And it's kind of similar to any type of specialist. It requires a lot of specialization, a lot of certification. There's even people who do transmissions for like heavy vehicles, tractor trailers, equipment, movers, construction type of equipment. That's a whole nother thing. You get that level of expertise in automotive and then kind of transfer it to bigger equipment. Caterpillar. Caterpillar's hiring. Caterpillar's always hiring. That's a potential job. It's just not like a Toyota job. But just for everybody who's considering whether or not this is what you really want to do, know there's other stuff out there. All right, cool. And again, the tasks you can kind of summarize like you're going to road test, you're going to diagnose, you're going to determine what's wrong, you're going to tear it out, overhaul it, fix it, reinstall it. It's kind of both. All right, so I'm going to clip these two videos together. I lost my microphone. So we're back in it. Shop foreman's a little different. The shop foreman tends to be the supervisor of the shop, not the supervisor of the whole service department, but the shop. Exactly what's going on out in the shop, the technicians, the service manager, director, those are a little different. The service manager would be in charge of typically the whole service department. And we're not really going into those much. And the service director, sometimes called like fixed operations manager or director, those would be more like in charge of service and parts, right? So where we end here is really going to be who's in charge of the shop itself, and that'd be the foreman. And they may be at least partially responsible for hiring. So when you go to get hired, more than likely you'll have a shop foreman as part of that interview. And they may ask some questions. They're more technically oriented. The service manager director may or may not know how to fix cars. Sometimes the service manager or director is like a service advisor, gone management. Sometimes the service manager was a technician. A lot of times it would go technician, foreman, maybe service manager, maybe service director. And then the GM of the dealer is over parts, sales, and service. So if you look at the whole hierarchy of a dealership, there's the GM at the top, service manager or sales manager would be on the sales side, right? Sales side. The service director would be parts and service. Parts manager director would be parts. Service manager would just be service, right? So that's a little above what we cover. The foreman may have a role in the hiring. The foreman will probably have a role in training, and they don't give you classes and lessons and assignments, but let's say that you move up from a lube tech and to an apprentice. A lot of times that's when you'd work with the foreman. The foreman gets the problem cars. You would work with the foreman fixing the cars. You would most likely already have completed school or be most of the way through school so that the foreman can kind of work with you on the finer points, finer details, right? And just in full transparency, most tradespeople spend 5,000 hours being developed so they're full-fledged journeyman level, like a journeyman electrician, maybe 4,000, maybe 5,000. To give you the math on that, that would be you working in the dealership full-time, 40 hours a week for 2 to 3 years. So a lot of times when you come out of school, maybe you've been working in the dealer for a year, maybe you're working at an independent shop before that a little bit or whatever. But to really be turnkey line tech, you're going to need on-the-job training. That's most likely going to come from the foreman. Sometimes it comes from a team leader. but the foreman is probably the most common. So you'd be working with the foreman, fixing problem cars, dealing with things. The foreman's usually the most technically advanced person in the shop. They fix a lot of problem stuff. It's not necessarily the person who can work the fastest. It's the person who can fix the hard stuff. All right. That's pretty normal. And then a lot of times they may provide performance reviews. They may oversee other technicians' work. So what that would look like is, say a line tech has a car and they're struggling. They're getting their butt kicked on it. They can't figure out what's wrong. A lot of times they might go to a foreman, say, "Hey, what do you think, foreman?" And the foreman can help the technician fix the cars. Or the foreman can just take the problem car and get the technician on another job. So that varies, right? Some shops, the foreman just deals with the problems. Other shops, the foreman is a little bit involved with all the techs, and the techs still actually fix the problem cars. Now, this is a very different position because the foreman, sometimes it's a flagging foreman where the foreman still fixes cars and still flags hours. But other times, the foreman gets paid like a base salary plus a shop productivity bonus. So it's in this foreman's very best interest to try to keep everybody productive if they get that bonus based on productivity, right? So let's say that a good foreman who's getting that productivity bonus helps all the technicians fix the cars, or fixes themselves or whatever. The more hours the shop produces, the more the foreman makes. So it's in the foreman's best interest to keep everybody productive and sometimes absorb those problem cars rather than drag a technician down and have them not flag a lot of hours. And mostly what I'm saying is specific to the dealer. The foreman in some fleet shops is basically just a manager. They may not even have tools anymore. But it kind of depends. And they'll be on the hook for safety things because they're out in the shop. Now, here's a totally different position. And sometimes I got a little chip on my shoulder about this position. And I'll explain why. The service advisor or service consultant works with customers and technicians. So here's what that looks like. Customer brings their car in. They've got a concern. They pull it into the service drive. A lot of times a porter or a greeter will get the customer, say, "Hi, how you doing? Do you have an appointment today?" "Yes, it's with so-and-so. Here's so-and-so. So-and-so is the service advisor. The customer is going to talk with so-and-so. They're going to say, "Hi, so-and-so. I have, this concern, and, maybe the vehicle has a particular issue." It's the service advisor's job to take the customer concern and get information and get it onto the repair order, right? That's what we're talking about here. A good service advisor can really help the technician know what's going on. A not so good service advisor, and sometimes they're a little lazy, they might not do a thorough job of asking what the problem is. And later in the program, I can tell you some stories about cars I've had a hard time fixing because I got bad information on the initial write-up. And exactly what's on that repair order is important. So to be honest, the best service advisors also know how to fix cars, or at least know all about the car, right? So let's say 20 years from now, you no longer want to work in the hot shop, you want AC. Cool. You could probably do that. But if you want to have AC, you're going to maybe become a service advisor. You're going to have, you need to have people skills. You need to be able to, be likable, sell service, but you can get your AC. The best service advisors were technicians. And so you'll know the questions to ask. You'll know kind of what direction you're going already. On the other side, you get a service advisor that was just a salesperson, basically. They have no idea how to fix the car. Sometimes they don't know what to ask. They don't know what things are important or not important. How does it happen? What are you doing when it happens? What does it sound like? If a service advisor says the vehicle makes a sound, and you go out there and you start it and it goes sha-na-na-na-na-na, vroom, vroom, vroom. That makes a sound. That's a normal sound. Are we talking about a ticking, a clicking, a squeaking? Like what, So if the service advisor doesn't have a technical background, it can make your job kind of difficult, right? However, more about what the service advisor job does. Because they're the first point of contact for customers, a lot of times this is where the reviews come from. So it's very important that you get a service advisor who's likable and outspoken and, smiles and all those desirable people skills. They need to have that. Customer comes in, deals with the service advisor. Service advisor is going to book the customer work, so they may schedule it, but at a minimum, they're going to enter it into the system and say the vehicle's here. This is the promised time. It's a waiter, or it needs to be done at noon, or it needs to be done at 5, or it needs to be done end of the day, or whatever. They're going to do the repair order. So they do the initial customer concern, right? If you look at the 3 C's, which we're going to cover later, concern, cause, correction, they get the concern down. If it's a good write-up, the concern will be clearly stated. You, the technician, will get the paperwork and be like, all right, I know what's up with this one. And then you as the technician are going to take that concern and do the diagnosis and make a recommendation for a repair. Then you will most likely go to parts and get a part price. And then let's say that you're going to sell a belt. Let's say the customer concern was squeaking. Service advisor wrote that up in the concern. You find out it's a belt. You go to parts, you get a price on the belt. Then you go to the service advisor and say, yeah, the problem's a belt. I got a price on the belt, and it's going to be 1 hour of labor to replace the belt. The service advisor will price that repair, right? So 1 hour labor at the shop rate plus the price of the belt, which the parts department quoted. Then they'll call the customer and say, hey, that belt repair is going to be that to repair your squeak. It's a squeaking belt. That repair is going to be $200. Probably can be more actually. $325. Would you like to fix it or not? And the customer is going to say yes or no. And if the customer says yes, the service advisor is going to call you, say, hey, the customer approved that. Go ahead and get it, or they may do it through the, whatever service program. There's many. Reynolds, Techion's a big one that's up and coming. CDK, whatever. Somehow you're going to find out that, yes, they approved the belt. At that point, you go get the belt, you put the belt on the car, and then you would write up the 3 C's. The first C was already taken care of. That was a concern. The cause, diagnosed as a squeaking belt. The correction, replaced the belt, verified the squeak is gone, road tested the vehicle, it's good. They will take your write-up and they will basically enter it into the system, and that'll become an invoice. Then the customer comes to pick up the car. Service advisor does the final invoice, sends them over the cashier. Cashier takes their money and hands them the keys. Right. So that's how it really goes. The service advisor really keeps track of the work. So you don't keep repair orders, you don't store them. If somebody comes for an audit and asks a lot of questions, your write-up is done. They might have to deal with a service advisor. And then keep in mind, you, the technician, don't really talk to customers, which can be good or bad. If you don't love talking to customers, don't become a service advisor, but don't complain you don't get to work in the office with the AC. That's the job that they've got. You can have that job, but you got to talk with customers, right? So they are basically a good salesperson who sells service. They don't sell new cars. They sell parts and labor, and mostly labor. Technically, the parts department's really, I guess they are selling parts for the parts department. So kind of interesting. All right. And again, they're the interface between the technician and customer. The reason I like to say that is because you as a technician, you're allowed to just be very technical and say things like, oh yeah, I check DTCs, right? The customer's gonna be like, you check what? STDs? Huh? Like, no, DTCs, diagnostic trouble codes, right? So this service advisor should be able to communicate to the customer what we're doing, why we're doing it in simple terms, but they should also be able to go talk technician terms. It's kind of like being bilingual. And they can become a service manager, but so could a technician, typically who's a foreman. So I'd say service manager or a foreman, or a service advisor or a foreman could become a service manager, and either could become the director too. Cool. So the service manager overall deals with the whole entire department. So everybody would report to the service manager within service. That would be technicians, the foreman, porters, service advisors, everybody, the shuttle driver, everybody reports to the service manager. So the service manager is a good paying job. I don't know exactly what a service manager makes everywhere, but the dealers we're in communication with today, 2026, Southern California, 250 plus thousand a year. Make great money. If that's what you want to do, you should do it. You could do it technician, foreman, service manager. You could do it technician, service advisor, service manager. Maybe even do it porter, lube tech, apprentice, line tech, foreman, service advisor, service manager, and then potentially the director, which would be over parts and service. The directors are like 300,000. So very solid money, but stress. You are in charge of the whole service department, and your success, you report to the GM, your success is dependent on how many hours everybody flagged, and how many jobs came in, and how many sales were made on parts. And so you may not, as the service manager, be in control directly of all those things. So you need to find a way to motivate the people and to give them the tools they need so that everybody can do their job. So this is not a person who's going to be out there seeming like they do a lot of work. This is a person who's going to basically manage the people to do the work. So your service manager, directors might be in a suit. They might seem like they're chilling in their office. If they're good at their job, sometimes it doesn't look like they're working that hard, but just understand when things go sideways, this is a person who can be terminated on the spot. See a lot of service managers and directors. So it's a great potential. I wouldn't do it personally. Oh, and also when things go wrong, that's the person they complain to. So you got to handle customer complaints. Again, they're accountable for the overall performance of the shop. So if numbers are down because whatever reason, service manager's the one who's, on the hook for that. Cool. So pretty fun. Now let's talk about different types of shops. Logically, I was talking a lot about dealers. So a dealer is affiliated with a specific vehicle manufacturer. So like a new car dealer, the New Car Dealer Association. Chevrolet, it's GM company. Logically, we mostly focus on Toyota and Lexus, but new car dealers have parts, sales, and service. New car dealers, because they're affiliated with a manufacturer, will also have some perks from the manufacturer, some training, etc. They are the only type of shop that can do manufacturer warranty repairs. So if a vehicle has a warranty from the manufacturer, it's going to the dealer. The other positive is it's cutting edge technology. So you're working on the latest and the greatest stuff, the new stuff. You're not like working on 50-year-old technology. Sometimes people bring in their old cars too, but the day in and day out, you're working on stuff that's pretty new, pretty modern. It's a good way to stay current on your training. Let's put it that way. Also, they have access to manufacturer service info. That's a big deal. If you try to go independent, like we'll talk about, you are going to get a subscription like All Data or something, and All Data purchases some of the manufacturer service info for you to use. When you're in the dealer, you get it right from the source. You also can have service representatives such as the field technical specialist. The FTS is the technical assistant who may work with your foreman. Sometimes they work with the team leader, Maybe you'll get to the point where you get to work with a FTS, a field technical specialist. Some manufacturers will call it a field service engineer. Um, those field service engineers, they don't interact with independent shops. It's only the dealer. And it's usually only with the most qualified people in the dealer. So um, some of my some of my favorite days were working with the manufacturer rep from corporate. That's top of the line. They have information that is not available to the general public. Sometimes I've talked with them and they can um, contact an engineer who designed the system and ask questions that are not in the service manual. I've had a really fun time working with them, but that doesn't happen unless you're in the dealership, right? And also this could be like tech line or tasks. So you may call and put in a request for a case saying, hey, I've got a vehicle that does ABC. Do we have any cases that match this so that we don't spend a ton of time on diagnosis if somebody else in another state in a different time has diagnosed it and documented everything, right? So get some perks. And of course, you may be sent to update training, e-learning in person, get course credit, get all that. When you're at a dealership, they have these relationships all in place. So you're never going to become stagnant. You're going to have to go to the latest courses and new model things and do e-learning. So it's kind of a pain, but it's also amazing. And that way, you're not falling behind, and that all comes through the dealer relationship. And we are going to visit the Irvine Toyota Regional Training Center. So this should give you some perspective. All right, independent shop. And I'm not knocking it. Most of my experience was dealership. However, I did work two different independent shops at two different times. One of them, well, I mean, they're similar, right? One of them, the owner really just wanted me to come in and work on my manufacturer stuff. At the time, that was GM. So he'd say, hey, I got a whatever Chevy, I got a Pontiac, a Buick, whatever it is. It needs X, Y, and Z. You want to do the job. And see, he would sell it to the customer, at his labor rate and all that type of stuff. And then he could do it, but I mean, if that's the stuff I'm doing all day at the dealer, why not give me a call, have me come in after I leave the dealer and do it like at night? He would just say, I sold the job. I can pay you this, right? So I wasn't paid by the hour. He would say, I need an oil pan done on this Buick. I'll give you $200. And I'd say like, yeah, I'm there. He would have all the parts, all the material. It was really cool. So it was never my 40-hour a week full-time job, but I got plenty of experience at the independent shop, especially at nights. And then later, when I started teaching, I became a little more crunched for time. But the cool thing was sometimes I wouldn't have a class right in the morning. And actually, some of this time was when I was working fleet at the railroad. And I had a shop who they had some good parts changers, but they didn't really have anybody to do diagnosis. So I had a shop not far from where I'm standing right now, who'd call me in just to do diagnosis. Um, and I really got to know how he ran that business. It was a AAA certified shop. And basically their whole role was to be cheaper. That's their whole business plan. And they had to really treat the customers good and they had to really care for them because, well, it was hard to get customers. How do you get a new customer when you're an independent shop? You're going to run ads. You're going to spend money on advertisements and things. You're going to how you get them. If you're in the dealer, every time you sell a new car, the people who buy that car are your new customer. So in the dealer, they tend to not focus on treating the customer so well because there's new customers every time they sell another car, right? Now, these independent shops, they can't do warranty work. So like they're trying to draw the customers in based on price being cheaper and also treating them really good. So sometimes I'll admit they can be a little more caring for the customers. So when he would call me to do diagnosis work, I just come in, he'd line the cars up at 8 a.m. and I would diagnose however many cars he had. And at first it was cash, and then I I was burning through the cash drawer. So he put me on the books. So it was legit on the books job, W-2 employee. And, I would just do the diagnosis. And then at that point, the service advisor would prepare the estimate and they'd call the customer. And sometimes they were more likely to work out deals. And, the customers would have some, questions like, well, do you think I should fix it? Or do you think I should get a new car? And, there was a lot more tender loving care taken for these customers. And honestly, the independent shop was pretty profitable, from what I could tell. They're still billing well over $100 an hour. And so a lot of times I talk with brand new technicians coming in, they say, I want to own my own shop. Um, you could, it's, challenging though, because if you get a car that comes in and it's a Toyota, you don't have TIS anymore. TIS is gone. So you're using all data, and all data doesn't always give you all the information. And then you got to have a scan tool, but the scan tool may not be it's not a tech stream or GTS plus. So you're going to get a snap-on or a whatever, and it may not be able to do all the exact functions. And then you're trying to get a different scan tool and you're trying to get other information, and so you don't have everything at your disposal like you do in the dealer. However, you know, it's a different pace a lot of times. It's just different. And if they want to send you to training to keep your information relevant, they got to send you somewhere, but where? If you're at the dealer, they're sending you to the manufacturer training center. If you're at an independent shop, nothing may be available. Or they may contact Delphi or Denso or somebody and be like, hey, can we do a training session? Or you may get no more training. It's a little hard to say, but it's all customer pay. So that's a positive. You're not trying to do a warranty labor rate, which tends to be at a reduced rate. So you may get paid more hours on the job at the independent shop, but it's probably not going to be as repetitive. So if you're in the dealer, you're doing a lot of repetitive jobs because you see the same cars. At the independent, you may be like, I've never done this job and I'm never going to do this job again because it's on some weird car, right? So it's just very different. But if you really want to go into this, what I recommend is get started in the dealer, get manufacturer trained, get to the point where you know that you can run the whole business. And then if you really want, you could start your own shop. But just understand, you're going to be married to that shop. That's your shop. You're going to be working a lot of hours. You're going to have to handle a lot of things. And you're going to have to deal with the service advisor side, at least somewhat, because, you got to make sure those customers get handled well. And that's where I check out. I wasn't interested in doing the independent shop after that. So dealer for life. Now here's another cool one. Specialty shop. Maybe you start this is a performance shop. Who wouldn't want to do that? But maybe you start a shop that specializes in lifts and off-road suspension. Or maybe you start a specialty shop that specializes in hybrid and EV, right? At least that way you are not trying to do all makes, all models, all things, all the time, all sorts of different things, and you need to buy all the equipment for all the things. If you do the off-road shop, you need a lot of suspension stuff and you probably need an alignment rack. If you did a performance shop, you're going to need heavy line stuff and maybe a dyno. So the performance or the specialty shop can make sense, but then you're limited as to what type of work you're doing. So maybe it's not perfect, but that's what a specialty shop is. A lot of times it's independently owned, but it specializes compared to a franchise, which may or may not be independently owned. Jiffy Lube, for example, is generally corporate. Jiffy Lube owns Jiffy Lube, so all those Jiffy Lube things are Jiffy Lube, right? Now, if it's a franchise place, that could be slightly different, where let's say you owned this Jiffy Lube and you had to pay a percentage to Jiffy Lube corporate, but you own this building, you own the land, or you lease it or whatever. These are your lifts or pits or whatever. And then people see Jiffy Lube and like, oh yeah, I know Jiffy Lube. I'll pull in and I'll get my oil change, and hopefully they put the drain plug back in. But this is a franchise shop. You'll always see the name. The colors will be the same, kind of like a chain. It's like a chain restaurant. Makes sense. Um, and they can sometimes have warranty claims that are honored through the franchise. So like AMCO transmissions. If you work at an AMCO and another AMCO put a transmission together and it failed, and now they're at your AMCO, AMCO will actually pay you to fix it because it's all AMCO, right? So it's some positives. And then lastly, a fleet shop. So this happens to be a rental car company, Avis or Enterprise or any one of these. Um, and it could be a municipality, so like a city or a town, or it could be the police department, or it could be a school district. They're going to have technicians who work in a shop on the fleet of vehicles. So the fleet experience I have was Union Pacific Railroad, CSX also, two different railroads. But when I left the dealer and went fleet, it was for a couple reasons. The main reason was I wanted to work an odd hour so that I could start teaching during the day. And if you're in the dealer, there's no night shift at the dealership. There's a couple, but that's very, very, very rare. Whereas when I went to Union Pacific Railroad, it was a fleet. I was maintaining and repairing locomotives for the company. There's no customer in the waiting room. They can schedule the service whenever they want. In fact, a lot of times they'd rather have it fixed at night because they want to run those trains during the day. And so I took a night shift job. So when I say night shift, I don't mean evenings. I'm talking about it was 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., midnight, graveyard, you might say. So my fleet experience was this. Um, it was definitely lower stress, slower pace because there's no customer in the waiting room. Um, you didn't necessarily have to worry about like, oh, do we need to sell this to a customer and wait for a callback or whatever? Like a lot of times they've already decided what they're going to do, and it can vary. So some of the rental car companies, they'll do just basic maintenance. Other rental car companies, they'll actually do more major repairs. So on the railroad, we did it all. So like if it was, let's say, Avis and the car was leaking coolant and they found it was a hose, they may just fix it to get the car back into service so that they can make money on the rental. But if it's like a leaking water pump, that's going to be, more expensive or bigger or more complex, they may send it to the manufacturer, to the dealer, because it's under warranty or because it's too big of a job or whatever. So a lot of times these companies may do more basic maintenance. So if you're looking at it as a technician perspective, like a lot of times these jobs may not be that technically difficult. Now, they may want you to work on a lot of cars. They may not. That depends. For the railroad, there was no send it to the dealer. The railroad, we did it all. So there was maintenance jobs, there was heavy line jobs, there was everything in between. But a lot of time, the railroad was union. These may or may not be union. So you may have a position where you do maintenance or you do heavy repair or you do this or you do that. And the pay is very clear. It's a pay plan. Sometimes everybody gets paid the same. Other times different jobs pay different amounts, but it's all very structured. And it's not going to be flagging hours. It's going to be hourly and sometimes salary. And maybe there may be some productivity bonus or something, but back here, dealership, that's generally going to be flat rate, unless you become the foreman or manager. Independence, that's a mix. That could be flat rate or that could be hourly. Fleet shops, I'm going to say almost always hourly, pretty much always hourly. Now, when we talk about these jobs, understand you could be qualified to do any of these positions at any of these types of facilities as long as you meet the qualifications. So I don't know what all the qualifications are, but I'll give you an example of what's pretty industry standard. So when we get into ASE, just understand we're talking about automotive service excellence. So it's independent, nonprofit, dedicated to the improvement of vehicle repair through testing and certification of automotive professionals. it's voluntary to become certified. So if you want to be an electrician, you need to be a licensed electrician to really offer services. I mean, guess you can do whatever you want, but you can also get in trouble. So this is similar to being licensed, in the fact that you have to take a test and, you get a patch or something, but automotive is different. You do not have to have a license to work on a car. Any of you right now, having never passed an ASE, could roll out and just start fixing cars right now. Now, depending on what state, you may need to be a registered repair facility, but they don't make you pass a test or be certified. They make you do some paperwork and pay some fees. Makes sense. So that's what we mean by it's voluntary. You don't have to be certified. It's voluntary. Now, here are the subjects, the tests you could take. Engine repair, that's A1. A2 is automatic transmission. A3 is manual drivetrain and axles. A4 suspension steering. A5 brakes. A6 electronics. A7 heating and air conditioning. A8 engine performance. A1 through A8 passed will make you a master technician. Don't let that term confuse you. Master technician means you're a master of 8 ASE areas. It doesn't mean that you can fix everything. It doesn't mean that in fact, it doesn't even really mean you can fix anything. It means that you've demonstrated an understanding enough to be able to answer questions in a multiple choice format better than your peers, right? So these tests are not easy, but nobody makes you fix a car. So to become ASE certified, you need to pass the test and you need 2 years of experience verified by an employer. All right. So those two things will make you ASE certified. If it were me, I would absolutely recommend being ASE certified. It's a bargaining tool. And as we get into some of the next slides, you're going to see it can make a difference on whether or not you're certified to perform work for a manufacturer. However, if you pass 8 ASEs and you don't invest the time or, through an apprenticeship or through learning on the job or whatever to actually fix the cars, it's just, we have a term, it's called a paper tech. You could be a paper technician. You're a technician on paper because you have a bunch of ASEs, but you need the skills. Okay. You need the skills. You need to be able to do the work. You need to put the time in to get good at it. It's kind of like riding a bike. You can answer a whole bunch of questions about riding a bike and you could demonstrate you understand how to pedal it. You could demonstrate your understanding on paper how to pedal it, but to really know how to ride that bike, you need to get your butt in that seat. You need some seat time. So just understand, passing these and studying for these demonstrates you know the theory. You need to go do the hands-on to really be good at it. Right. And then G1, maintenance, light repair. That's actually kind of where I'd put this course. And then L1 is advanced engine performance. And this one's a beast. To get L1, you need to have A8 already. And it's an advanced level of A8 where you have to actually look up specific voltages and readings. You have to reference a service manual live during the test. These are tough. And then there's L2, which is diesel at input. L3 is advanced hybrid EV. Similar to L1, but a hybrid and EV. And L4 I actually didn't even list as advanced driver assist systems. So that'd be like, the automation, early stage automation. So automatic braking, collision avoidance, lane keep assist, these types of things. I recommend studying for all these and taking courses for all these. This is what's going to make you a well-rounded technician. And if you take a course and if you take an engine course and you're not able to pass the engine ASE, I'm not sure what you learned in that engine course, right? So this is a third party. Anybody can take a class and pass the class because the instructor gives the test and grades the test, right? I think this makes it a little more, I don't know, like revealing when you can take a class with me. And if you can go and pass this ASE, it tells me that I presented the right material and also that you handled your business to go take this test from somebody else. So when you go take this, you have to pay. It's like $100 for your first ASE. You got to do a registration fee and a testing fee. That's about $100. You could do it cheaper if you do one registration fee and multiple tests at the same cycle, but they're pricey either way. You have to go to a facility, typically Prometric. They're going to check your ID, pat you down, make sure you don't have your phone, make sure you don't have anything written on you, and then you're going to get a time to complete this test in a little cubicle. I don't see any way to cheat. So this is legit. If I slap you with an A, I might have just given you an A because I wanted to, right? This gives a little more accountability. So I'm 100% for ASEs. However, if you have the ASE, it doesn't necessarily mean you can fix the car, but it's a good predictor. It shows me that you know enough to not be a total ding dong. It shows me like, hey, there's a good chance you're going to be able to fix this car because you've demonstrated your knowledge on paper on this test. All right. And they're good for 5 years. So when you pass it, 5 years later, you need to retake a half the length version roughly. And they do have an app. You can do questions on the phone, but you do need to go in. The recertifications are cheaper. The difference between certified and non-certified to me says a lot. If somebody's trying to do this for a living, for a career, and they want to be the best, but they're not willing to go past ASE, I don't see that as a good thing. That's not a good sign. So there's 275,000 technicians that are certified in the US. There may be a little bit more. But understand there's a lot of people who are not. And the biggest thing I could tell you is when you go to get the job, the ASE may separate you from someone else. You don't want to have any reason to be disqualified from that job, right? The non-ASE people, a lot of times they go to the bottom of the pile, right? That manager has no way to know that you're an amazing technician in the stall. All they can look at is the resume. So make your resume better. And also, it's a bargaining chip. So when you go for your raise, you don't want that manager to have any reason to tell you that you're not going to get your raise, such as you need to go past ASEs, right? Picking up what I'm putting down. And then the other thing is ASE Education Foundation, which used to be NATEF, certifies institutions. So if the school is not NATEF certified or ASE Education Foundation certified, I wouldn't go. I'd find one that is, because ASE comes in and makes sure I'm certified to teach you. They make sure that we have the right equipment, the right tools, the right number of hours in our courses, right? If they're not ASE certified as a college or as a high school or as a trade school, that's not good. Because it's not very expensive, but you have to comply. If you don't have the right things in place, you can't be certified as an institution. Whereas if you do, you have enough cars, you have enough tools, you have built enough hours into your program, you have a good shop that's safe, and you have instructors that are certified, then they would pass ASE Education Foundation certification. That'd be a good program. All right, cool. Also, there's a couple special certifications. 609 certification means you're certified to handle refrigerant, right? So being certified can vary a little bit. So like passing an ASE is one thing. Having a 609 certification is like a license to purchase refrigerant. So if you go to a parts store, they'll sell you the little can. But if you want the big tank, or if you want to buy a previous refrigerant like R12, you need to have the 609 certification. That's like a license. They'll call it a license, but technically it's really a 609 certification. So that's another thing that you'd like to have. Now, when we talk about manufacturer certification, use this as a generic explanation. I'm actually using an out-of-date version of this. So don't use this as like the gospel truth. This is an example. So let's say dealership technician, Toyota program, or a Toyota Lexus dealer. If you want to be able to do maintenance, you need to be maintenance certified. And as you can see right here, to be maintenance certified, you need these e-learnings below: TO21Y, P0709, Tech 100B, Tech 100C, M011A. And you will need M512A, right? And this is out of date. This gets updated every year, so there's no way I could possibly give you the current information every year in this presentation. So I'm going to just walk you through it so you'll be able to read it, whatever the heck year this is, and apply it to whatever manufacturer you're talking about. So if you want to be able to do this, the maintenance certification, you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 e-learnings. You could do that in 6 hours on the computer. It's not hard. It's not a big deal. Now, if you want to be a certified technician in the engine area, you need all the maintenance level stuff plus Tech 300A, E0788, E0819, E0849, H610A, M011B, M512A, Tech 300B, SC19A, Tech 303A. Those are all e-learnings. So you need a bunch more online, roughly 1-hour courses. Plus, you need T623 and T151 or 852. Those are courses. That means your dealer has to send you to the regional training center for 2 or 3 days, and you need to go through both of those courses in person. And those are going to be 8-hour courses all day long, times 2 or 3 days. And they're going to actually have you do a test at the end. They're going to make sure that you can do the hands-on work, and they're going to have you do a test at the end. To pass that, if you have all that e-learning and you go do those 2 or 3 courses, you can be engine certified. Right? Now, it's going to be similar for drivetrain, chassis, electrical, but different in-person courses. So, however this may change, understand if you want to be certified in 1, 2, 3, or 4, you need to go to the region for 2, 4, 6, 8. And that's just to be certified level. You're going to need like 8 or more hands-on courses. So your dealer can send you to those. But there's a wait list, and it may take months to get this one, and then months to get that one, and months to get that one, and more months to get this one, and months to get that one, and months and months and months and months and months and months. And next thing you know, it's been 5 years till you could finally get these 8 to 10 courses. You can do the e-learning right now. The courses, though, they only take typically like 6 to 8 technicians apiece. I've done tons of manufacturer training, went to many GM training courses, went to many Kia courses, went to many Toyota courses. I'm even eyeing some Honda courses, right? So these are amazing classes to take. They're very well done, clean, amazing. However, you're not certified until you've done them. And you could see this could take a long time. That's the main thing that T10, that's the hidden benefit of T10. We can give you credit for 623, 151, 852, 274, 302, 623. I think I listed that one. 453, 553. That's good. Oh, yeah. So 453, 553, 652, right? We're gonna give you credit for all that. You'd be certified level in engine, drivetrain, chassis, and electrical right off the bat. Now, let's say you want to be expert certified. Look, you need 2 years of experience in the Toyota dealership, which technically starts as soon as you start this program, by the way. As soon as we get you a spin number, you start. However, you need all the stuff above, plus you need 1, 2, 3, 4 additional e-learning, H11A, H610B, H611A, and H611B. Oh, and look at this. You need ASE A1 and ASE A8. So if you want to be expert level, it's the same as the certified level, plus a bunch of e-learning, plus you need to pass your ASEs. The in-person courses are the same. You don't have to go to more courses. You basically have to do e-learning and pass A1 and A8. To be expert in drivetrain, pass A2 and A3. To be expert in chassis, A4 and A5. To be expert in electrical, pass A6. To be expert in hybrid, A1, A6, A7, A8. My recommendation is just pass all 8 of your A level ASEs. And then you can be expert in everything. Then if we look at master, you'll notice it's expert in 5 areas plus another e-learning, and you need 2 courses, 673 and 973B. Right? So A1 through A8, basically all the things you need for expert in all areas, plus you just need 2 in-person courses, and T10 can't give you those. It's the only things we can't do. So if you ask my advice, get all your e-learning done, which you have to do, or you're not going to get in the program. Additionally, handle your business and get every ASE while you're in every class. We have classes for every single ASE. If you pass every ASE you're supposed to pass, you will be totally certified level. And as soon as you hit 24 months, which will be graduation, boom, you'll be expert level. But because you've handled all your ASEs, you're really going to be basically expert level, just waiting on a couple courses. And back in the day, master level needed 60 months. It's down to 36. So 1 year after graduation, you could be master level. But wait, it's better. If you also pass L1, your master level, plus you pass advanced ASE, advanced engine performance, L1, that's what makes you a master diagnostic technician. That's MDT. So, and I believe that one's also now 36 months. So your plan to become a master diagnostic technician, or at least a master technician, is just like this. It starts at maintenance, e-learnings, and then it continues a bunch of e-learning, e-modules, you may say, and in-person classes, which is going to be the same for other manufacturers. You have to go to manufacturer training. When they say factory certified, that's what they mean. They sent you to the manufacturer classes. T10 just, it's integrated. That's why we're different than a general automotive program. All right. The school I came through was a GM ASEP program. They gave me a whole bunch of manufacturer classes because they built it into their classes at the college. Then I had to go to do a few more in person, and then handled my ASEs, expert master level, coming right up on MDT. Why do you care? All right. If you're maintenance certified, you can do 5Ks and 10Ks. If you're a certified technician, you can do in engines, you can do engine warranty claims. So if you have a leaking valve cover on a car, you can do that now because you're certified level. Some of the more complicated engine repairs require to be expert level. So if that, let's say leaking valve cover requires certified level, but a recall for the Tundra engine replacement requires you to be expert level, can you do the job or not really depends on, did you pass your ASE or not? So if you didn't pass A1, you're not going to be able to do some jobs. Why does that matter? Well, A, you want to be able to flag as many hours as you can. You want to be able to do all the work that's on the board. You don't want to be like, oh, well, all the customer pay jobs are done. I don't have any work. That's how your paycheck goes down. And B, the more certified you are, the higher your hourly pay is going to be because the dealership wants very certified people and they know they have to pay more for them. It's just basic economics. It's that darn capitalism and whatnot. Right? So it's in your best interest to be more certified. Generally, higher pay, higher pay, higher pay, higher pay, higher pay. Highest pay is typically MDT. Now, some people will say, you don't want to be certified because then you have to do the hard cars. And that, I do follow the logic. I just think it's dumb. It's kind of like, so you don't want to work more hours because they take more in taxes. You know, like, yeah, they do, but you still make more money. right? So if you want to make less money so that you can pay less in taxes, that's true, work less, and then you pay less in taxes, but you'll have less in your pocket. It seems crazy to me. The more certified you are, the higher your hourly rate's going to be. You will make more. So if somebody tells you don't be certified because up here you do a bunch of gravy, that's true, but understand the dealer is going to say, well, I'm going to pay you less per hour because you can only do customer pay gravy. I agree though. If you just want to put on your music and jam out and do brainless work, be up here. That's true. Up here. If you want to make more money, you need to be down here, but you are going to deal with problems and diagnosis. It's going to be more challenging. I recommend embracing that, having fun with that. Some of the hardest cars I ever had to fix, I remember them. And looking back, at the time I was stressed out, but now looking back, it was kind of fun. The challenges were fun. So this is an example of certification for a manufacturer. And this is really visually why. Let's say there's a recall. It's going to be, how about D0B? If a recall comes in, D0B, that's the campaign number. Can you do it or not? This person, no. See, D0B, they're not certified. So that job can't be dispatched to this person. What would they need to do that one? DOB. I would have to go look up the campaign D0B and see what do you need. And I'm pretty sure D0B is expert in brakes, if I remember D0B. Just for fun, I'm going to actually double check that. Toyota D0B campaign. Okay, that is, oh, that's SRS. So that is address the defect in supplemental restraint system ECU. And it's older. It's on Corolla and Matrix. All right. So if it's D0B, that would require probably to know for sure, I'd have to look up the whole document. D0B says you need to be expert in electrical. Well, look, this sample student, electrical, they've got 623, that's the in-person class. They've got 652, that's the in-person class. Ooh, and they do show ASE A6, but you see that 23 months. Their ASE is not quite ready because you need 2 years work experience for ASE. So their ASE is not live yet. So this person hasn't graduated yet. In another 1 month, boom, this will turn green. They will need to have done 1, 2, 3, 4 e-learning plus probably 6 really, these down here. If they do these 6 e-learning in 1 month, D0B will light up and this technician can do D0B and flag the time for D0B. If they can't and D0B is the only job on the board, they may be like, hey, you're done, go home. We don't have any work for you because you're not certified to do it. Make sense? So this is critical, critical, critical. And you can see they are technician certified in these areas, not expert certified. A lot of times the campaigns need expert, right? So that's just an example, and you can go through many. All these green ones means that's jobs that they can do. They're certified enough to do those jobs. The reds are not. Once in a while, you need to be master certified to do the campaigns and recalls, right? So the more certified you are, the more jobs you can do, the more profitable you're going to be. It's critical you understand that. Cool. All right. So you guys, it's been fun. It's been real, but this is where I'm going to end. We covered everything we needed to cover. So catch you next time.